Good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone. It's Tuesday, March 9th. This is the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of New Canaan. This is the rescheduled meeting from the February 24th meeting that got snowed out and buried us under a couple feet of snow. So thank you for being patient and coming back tonight. We have a number of items on the agenda. I know that there's obviously a pretty good audience here. One in particular is the 30 Parade Hill Road application. I just want to make it clear that there is no public comment on this application tonight. Tonight is just a preliminary presentation by the applicant, and then subsequent to this meeting, we're to set a subsequent date that we'll hear the formal full application with public input and everything else after that.
Comments be received by you after the presentation?
Will what?
Comments
Written
to the board?
They can be sent to Sarah.
So all
They
the
can be-
comments can be sent to me, Sarah Carey. My email is on the town's website. If you go to, yes, you can send.
After the presentation.
Correct.
Yes.
Send me an email anytime. Yep.
Send emails anytime, and then she'll distribute to the rest of the commission.
Anyone who has sent an email already, it's posted on the website where the commission views the application. So up until I think 3 o'clock today, if you sent me an email, it's on the website. So.
Great. Some housekeeping first. We'll take attendance for the commission. Dan Radman here, Krista Nielsen.
Here.
John Kriz.
Here.
Chris Herring is not here yet. John Engel. Here. Alan Swerdlow.
Here.
Tom Benton not here yet. Eric Knowles.
Here.
Christina Larson.
Here.
Megan Mensching.
Here.
Bill Pratt.
Here.
Great. So for tonight, these are all new applications, right? Yep. So everyone that I just called out, everyone is, including the two alternates, you are seated for tonight's hearings. If Chris and Tom show up, they're not going to be seated for the hearing, so they can come in late. All right. First application is 21 South Avenue. Upon application of, I apologize if I get this wrong, Zigrida Parubi, authorized agent for 21 South Avenue Property LLC, owners for site plan approval pursuant to sections 4.2.c to allow a change of use from a retail store to a personal service establishment on the first floor in Retail A zone at 21 South Avenue, Map T, Block 44, Lot 924. Who do we have from applicant on Zoom?
Zigrida Parubi.
Hi there. State your name and relationship to the application.
I am the owner. Zigrida Parubi.
Hold on, we
Volume issue.
have a volume issue.
Can you hear me now?
Give us a second.
Sure.
Our IT team is on it. Hi, can you say something again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Much better. Thank you.
Awesome.
So go ahead, state your name and your relationship to the application.
Zigrida Parubi. I am the applicant for the retail property space for the business.
Okay. And can you describe the business that you're looking to put in there?
Yeah, so it will be a small boutique beauty studio offering eyebrow service, facials, and skincare consultation. The business will operate by appointments only and limited walk-in traffic. The space will include service and retail stations, and also with retail in not only in the front of the stores, but all around the stores.
Okay. And the treatment, from what I can see on the floor plan, the treatment rooms will be towards the back of the space.
There will only be one treatment room.
Only one treatment room. Okay.
Mhm.
And then the rest in the front end by the entry, that's all going to be retail.
Yeah, it'll be retail and 3 stations. In between the 3 stations, there'll also be retail shelving also all across.
Okay. And what type of stations?
It will be a chair, so a regular salon chair.
Understood. For what type of service? For
Oh,
cutting?
no, it'll be for brow services, facial waxing, brow makeup applications, all beauty services.
Got it.
And you said there's 3 beauty stations? I only see 2 on the drawing.
We're going for 2 first, and then maybe later on to add a 3. We're not sure, but first we're going to start off with 2.
This is Commissioner Chris. Is there a restroom available? I don't see it on the chart.
Yes, it's in the back.
That's storage.
There's storage, and then in the back there's a restroom, and it's handicap access also.
That would be in the 7.7 by 5 foot space. It would be the restroom for staff and customers.
Yes.
And that would be ADA accessible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I just wanted to make sure, I mean, it looks like you've left space for it, but that you understand that the first 15 feet of depth have to be retail area.
Yes. The first, not only will the first 15 feet be retail area, but also where the stations will be, right next to each station, the walls will have all retail.
So you're going to exceed that.
Mm-hmm.
And planning and zoning staff does an inspection right before they open to verify that.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, any other questions? Yes, Mr. Engel.
I'm just trying to understand what kind of business this is based on the other businesses in town and whether there's a precedent. So I'm just wondering, because I don't know anything about beauty services.
So it'll be
This
cosmetology.
kind of like benefit,
Yes, same thing.
they provide a mixture of product and
Yep.
services. You would provide product and services just like benefit.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thanks.
Close to arriving at the station.
Very seeking up with the reassurance.
And the same thing.
There's anything further?
No.
Okay. Are we doing public input on these?
Yep.
And can we vote on these tonight
Yes.
immediately?
You could vote right now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Perubi, anything further on your side?
No, that'll be it.
Okay, and this application is closed. Commissioners, any further deliberation, or can I call a vote, or do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this application. It's a minor change of use with no exterior changes, no parking requirements. And I don't think the change in use will have any impact on the surrounding land uses. The applicants also stated that they understand and intend to meet and exceed our retail requirement in the front of the store for personal service.
Read.
Commissioner Chris, I'll second.
Okay. Call to vote, Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Ellen Swerdlow,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Yes.
Christina Larson,
Yes.
Megan Menching.
Yes.
And Bill Pratt.
Yes.
You are approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is 94 Park Street. Upon application of Robert Malazzi III, authorized agent for Caroline Realty LLC, owner, for a site plan approval pursuant to section 4.4.c to allow a change of use from general to medical office in the Business A zone at 94 Park Street, map T, block 44, lot 914. Mr. Malazzi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Where would you like?
You can just go right up. Yeah, either's fine. Just press the,
Everybody, again,
good to see you.
haven't been on this side of the room in a little while, so. it's nice to be back.
Just turn the microphone on, hold the button down. Yeah, push hard. There you
Got it. Thank you. Anyway, nice to be here.
go. Tell us about the application.
So before you is an application, as you read, to convert one of our spaces into a medical office, which is allowed through the zoning in the Business District A. We have a nice gentleman who was the New Jersey Nets trainer. He is desiring to open up a physical therapy and fitness business. It's just him and an associate. It is appointment only. I have a lease signed with them. I don't see a lot of complications. What was in that space before was a real estate office. Matter of fact, there was a real estate office there since '78. Believe it or not, we were grandfathered before the zoning changed, so we could have offices on the first floor. So I've had a real estate office in there for the last 30-something years. So this is a change. It's a nice change. You see the floor plan in front of you. Pretty simple. Again, appointment only. I expect, quite frankly, less impact than when I had a real estate office there with brokers coming in and out and monthly meetings, weekly meetings and things like that. So that's pretty much it. I'll happy to answer any of the questions.
This is the old Berkshire Hathaway space?
Yes, exactly.
It is. Okay. Gotcha.
Just to clarify for everyone, this is actually in business A. It's not in the retail zone, so first floor medical is allowed.
Did I say retail? I'm sorry. I thought I said business.
Great. And the space as it is, only street access from Park Street, or is there access? There's a door in the back.
There's a
too,
door in the
right?
back, exactly, yes.
So will they have parking in the rear?
They have 2 spaces for staff in the rear.
In the rear?
Yep.
But that's it.
That's it. Well, their customers can use our parking lot, but in terms of staff, for instance, like the real estate office had 4 spaces dedicated. They'll have 2 because they don't have the staff.
Got it. And then the only ADA accessibility is through the front?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's a door in the back where the lot is and stairs, I'm assuming down?
There's a couple ways to get there. A lot of the tenants love that people go through the toy shop, quite frankly, to go down those stairs. It's one straight shot down. They get a little visibility. So I haven't, because it was a real estate office before, I don't know how the entrance and egress was made all the time, but I know there's plenty of it.
The other question I had is, do you have any sense how long the appointments are?
Yes, in the application, I wrote anywhere between a half hour and I thought 90 minutes, he said. We got that information from him.
Okay.
He has no idea, what they'll be, but that's generally where it is.
So you'd have a maximum of 2 people
Correct.
coming every 30 to 90
Correct.
minutes.
Yeah.
How much
Exactly.
staff does he project having?
2.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Commissioners, anything further? Mr. Malazzi, anything further?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay. We'll close the application. Commissioners, any further deliberation, or do I have a motion?
If it's allowed by right, why is he here?
Change of use. From,
Just change of use.
change of
Is
use.
the only thing we're voting on.
Correct, from general office to medical office.
Use.
Correct. It's same as the application that you just heard for the salon.
So we can't really say no. It's an allowed use.
There's no red flag.
So Commissioner Chris, I'll move that we approve the application. I detect no changes to the frontage. And I think that the usage will be relatively restricted given the number of staff and also the hang time for patients. And so as far as traffic and other issues, I see a de minimis, if any, effects, given the types of businesses that are nearby, as well as the prior use of this space.
Great. Do I hear a second?
Same time.
Got Megan.
All right.
There we go. All right, we got a second on that. Call to vote. Dan Radman, I vote yes. Krista Nielsen,
Yes.
John Chris,
Yes.
John Engel,
Yes.
Alan Swerdlow,
Yes.
Eric Knowles,
Yes.
Christina Larson,
Yes.
Megan Mensching,
Yes.
and Bill Pratt.
Yes.
Okay, we're cruising along.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sir?
Yep, nice seeing everyone.
Had a schedule.
Trying to make.
Letting everybody know.
Mhm. Next application, item 3 on the agenda, 30 Parade Hill Road. Upon application of Amy Suchins, McDermott Reynolds, and Glissman, PC, authorized agent for GHF Parade Hill Road LLC owners for a site plan approval pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes to construct a 14-unit residential structure in the B residence and half-acre zones at 30 Parade Hill, map P, block 42, lot 852. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Evening.
Short PowerPoint presentation. I was not able to get onto the Wi-Fi, but I'm going to give it another shot. Okay. So it's gonna work.
If you have any virus software, you might have to turn it off to get onto the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think it looks like it finally connected.
Any luck?
Yes, let me
Just mute your laptop.
Yep.
and then-
I work better with a mouse. Share. Great. So, Mr. Chairman, good evening. Amy Suchins, McDermott Reynolds and Glissman, 42 Cherry Street, Milford, Connecticut. Sitting with me tonight at the table are Richard Freeman, who is the president of Garden Homes, and Brian Daly, who is general counsel. Also on the Zoom with us tonight is Mark Brantz, who is longtime outside counsel to Garden Homes, as well as David Rich from the Housing Collective. So at some point, if there are any questions for David with respect to sort of the role of the Housing Collective, we can have him join. But as you said, we're going to give you a short overview presentation. We've not brought our engineer or architect just to give you the overview. We anticipated that we could go through the overview of the site and the general development concepts, and then walk you through any details, either at a public hearing or at a subsequent meeting. So with that, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on Garden Homes because I do think it's important to the application that we have here tonight. They are a second-generation family real estate firm based in Stamford, founded in 1962. They have 9 830G communities either under construction or completed since 2003. The Garden Homes Management is the for-profit entity that owns a number of communities across the tri-state region as well as Greater New England. And then the Garden Homes Fund, which is the nonprofit entity. 30 Parade Hill Road is in fact a project of the Garden Homes Fund, the nonprofit, as well as the Housing Collective, as we noted in the application materials. Once completed, the intent here is to sell 30 Parade Hill below cost to a area housing nonprofit. This was something that Garden Homes did in Westport at 122 Wilton Road with great success, sold to Homes for Hope. And with respect to the development proposal here, we'll walk you through just sort of the basics. I'll go through the site plan as well as the affordability plan. So the building development plan here is 14 units. We have a combination of 10 2-bedrooms and 4 3-bedroom units, 3 stories, 16 parking spaces, constructed to high quality with high quality materials, high level of construction standards. And we have in the design intentionally underbuilt this site as compared to some of the other options that we can consider. So with that, I just wanted to turn to the site plan, very basic layout of the building, entrance from Parade Road, exit, right turn only onto Parade Hill. We have 16 parking spaces, 14 units. There will be a restriction that if there is a tenant in the building, there is 1 car per unit. That is something that Mr. Friedman has had success with in other locations, and we would implement it here. And as from the site layout, pretty straightforward: entrance, parking lot, and the building. The landscaping plan is included in the application materials and does propose screening and additional plantings across the site. And then we just wanted to spend a minute in comparison. I made the comment about the site being intentionally underbuilt. This is a comparison to the Millport housing zone as well as the Canaan Parish housing zone. You'll see when you get down to the second column or second row, maximum building coverage is less than what's permitted in those zones. Same with combined impervious coverage, height as well. We're a story below each of those sites. Parking is actually very comparable to Millport, and we are in the same similar proximity to the center of town. And then, as you know, we have applied as assisted housing. There's a couple of components to this. Number one, there are 5 units that will be reserved for voucher holders who have those. Those are administered and supported by the Housing Collective. As I said, David is available to answer any questions, but we do also have a letter from him as part of the application materials that outlines the need for voucher units that will accept voucher holders in the area. In New Canaan and specifically, there are none that the Housing Collective administers that are actually able to be used in New Canaan. And then the second component is also the CERT 126 sales and use tax exemption that is granted from the Department of Revenue Services pursuant to state statute for personal property and services that are used in construction or rehabilitation with moderate income housing. It's basically a exemption from sales tax requirements. So we have those are the 2 components by which we qualify as assisted housing. And then the last piece we wanted to touch on was we did submit the application with 2 different affordability plans. Time is money, to be frank. And so the issue that we have proposed is that there is a default affordability plan. It notes that there will be the 5 units, as I mentioned, reserved for voucher holders at 50% AMI, 6 units at 80% AMI, and 3 units at market. That gives the town 10 HUE points, housing unit equivalent points, if you're not familiar with the acronym. The alternative plan that we have submitted And again, if this application were to be approved, we would pursue that alternative plan, which does grant the town significantly more Hue points. It would maintain the 5 units reserved for the voucher holders at 50%. It would be 5 additional 5 units at 50% AMI, 4 units at 60% AMI, and that would give the town 26 Hue points. So 2.5 times the default plan. And as I said, the goal is we think this is a compliant plan with all of the relevant criteria governing building codes, traffic safety, stormwater, everything else. And so we think that if this, we're able to receive an approval from you, we don't have to spend time litigating or challenging conditions of approval. The opportunity is there to provide that alternate plan. And that's the basic content of what we had. We're happy to obviously answer any questions. As I said, David is available to answer any questions about the housing vouchers and obviously we're happy to answer any other questions. I know there's been a fair amount of public comment to date, but stop the share. There we go.
Thank you. Not sure where to start. Part of your presentation, you mentioned that you tried hard not to maximize use of the site. I'm guessing what you mean by that is by not going taller than 3 stories?
Correct. That if you look at the comparison that we included, we are less than what is allowed in the Millport or Canaan Parish zone. We also have less coverage than allowed in those zones. So if we were to look at the other affordable housing developments in town, we're underbuilt in comparison to those.
But you're not in those zones.
Understood.
So, okay. And as far as the overall design of the site, certain things stand out in terms of not only the design of the building, but also the site layout, having all of the parking at the front of the property, having the trash enclosure at the front of the property. Not exactly a very attractive approach to a building. Have you considered alternative options to the layout and positioning of the building and the parking and the site design?
We have, Mr. Friedman can answer that for you.
We did consider other layouts. Putting the parking behind the building creates more impervious coverage. That's the biggest problem with putting the parking in the back. We looked at rotating the building and we couldn't meet the fire code by rotating the building. If you rotate the building in the parking, it doesn't fit. So we did look at other possible layouts, and this was the one that worked with the least amount of impervious coverage and the most green space for the people who will be living there. And we did put screening in the front of the building.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
How does putting the parking in the back and pulling the building forward increase the impervious coverage? It seems to me you're just swapping one for one.
Because you have to run a driveway to the back, and the driveway has to be 20 feet under the fire code.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I just want to take a step back before, excuse me, we go into kind of the merits of the case, because what was troubling me, and forgive me, I'm not a Connecticut attorney, I'm just a New York attorney, this kind of gating issue of the exemption to the 830G moratorium that you're seeking. And, you know, just looking through your application and kind of the argument that you're making, if you could, you know, kind of explain in more detail, you know, you're seeking this exemption under subsection L2B, calling it other affordable housing applications for assisted housing, 40 or fewer dwelling units. And then, there's obviously the definition of assisted housing. So could you walk me through kind of your legal authority and your case law that supports that this exemption is applicable to this project as you've proposed it?
Yeah, so if you look at our materials, we have, as I said, the letter from the Department of Revenue Services that indicates that we are, number one, a housing facility for low and moderate income individuals. It's sponsored and owned or operated by a nonprofit organization. That is, again, outlined in the letter, confirms that we are exempt from sales and use tax. Attached to that is the IRS revenue ruling that goes into that. And on page, in your record, it's page 65. The relevant portion is actually highlighted, or it's shown in a block. And then again, in the housing collective letter, we are indicating, again, the vouchers, middle of the first paragraph, vouchers will be used at 30 Parade Hill Road, will be funded under the State of Connecticut Rental Assistance Program, authorized under Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-345. So we have two different reasons that we qualify as assisted housing, because we are not only getting using the vouchers that are qualified residents as assisted housing, but we are also receiving the tax exemption.
So just to piggyback off that, so the and this is what was one thing that was troubling me was it says the applications for assisted housing. It doesn't say partial assisted housing. So tell me how, and by reading your application, there are at minimum 5 units that would be assisted, but the rest could be arguably market rate?
No.
Under
the plan, what we've shown under the sort of the default plan is that only 3 units would be at market if we pursued that plan. If we pursued the alternate plan, because you approved, every single unit is affordable.
And so under this section, you could have a building, you could get around the moratorium exemption by having a building that is part affordable and part market rate. And do you have case law to support that?
There is case law that supports the fact that the use of the tax program constitutes assisted housing.
But that wasn't my, that's the second point. That was my
Yes.
first. So a partial market rate building and a partial assisted or affordable building, you can be exempt from the moratorium under state law.
Because we qualify as assisted housing. It does not require the entire building to be assisted, or excuse me, to be affordable.
What's the threshold? Is it 3 units, 1 unit? Because
frankly, from our understanding of the law, it is based on the fact that there is the tax exemption and the eligibility that way.
So the tax exemption, all right, so let's move to the tax exemption. So the tax exemption is a government program, is a financial assistance of a government program.
Yes.
And there's case law to back that up.
The statutes and
that
Department of Revenue Services is telling us that too.
So so do you have those sections? Can you provide those to us?
We can absolutely get you the information. The tax exemption.
It's not really a subsidy, it's a tax exemption. And so I just want to be clear.
Functions as a subsidy because we're not paying
a reverse subsidy.
Tax.
It's not a voucher.
It's a subsidy on the construction because we're not incurring certain construction costs because we're exempt because of the DRS ruling.
Okay, so I just want to see that under this definition, under this section, there's legal support for
sure. We can get that for you.
501c3, nonprofit designation as a means of subsidy, because that's not really clear from this that you get by.
Also, can you point to where in 830G it stipulates that you bypass the moratorium with these conditions?
It's in,
I believe somewhere I read in your paperwork, 40 units or less assisted
I'll give you the
would
exact subsection.
would effectively negate the need for get around the moratorium. I just don't see that anywhere.
It's in. Uh, 830G sub L sub 2. Such moratorium shall not apply to affordable housing applications for, let me skip to B. So it shall not apply to B, other affordable housing applications for assisted housing containing 40 or fewer dwelling units.
So I just want to go back to your kind of your point that you made. So are you retreating from the argument that say you could do one affordable unit and still circumvent the moratorium, and that your only way that you become an assisted facility is your nonprofit status?
No.
So then if you,
Both.
it's both. So okay. So you're saying that to say you weren't a not-for-profit, your argument would be that if you had one unit of affordable and 13 market rate, that the law supports you and that you are a assisted housing facility.
Because the assisted and the definition involves the
Just seems illogical to me. And you haven't provided anything in your application that supports kind of this assertion.
And that's why we submitted the information from DRS and the Housing Collective for both issues. But so the definition, my point is that the definition of assisted housing covers the DRS materials. Oh, yeah, if you want to. Yeah, if you want to.
Look, sorry. I think the point here is that if it receives any governmental assistance under the definition of the statute that it qualifies, there's a case from the mid-90s, I believe, out of Hartford, Interfaith. I don't have the case site in front of me, but at any rate, the point of that was, in that case, the project received, I think, $10,000 as an interest-free loan, not even just $10,000 of grant money. And the court determined that was enough for it to be considered assisted housing. So it's an interest-free loan that they had to pay back, and that was enough for it to be considered assisted housing.
If you could put that in the record and some support that.
Well, can we just stay? I have more questions to follow up on on Eric's questions about both the vouchers and the sales tax exemption. So you guys qualify for the sales tax exemption because you're a 501c3 affordable housing developer in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
It's not specific to this project. You use a sales tax exemption on any project you construct.
Specific.
We had to apply for the.
We had to apply for it for this project specifically.
Any affordable housing developer who's a 501c3 can apply using Form Reg 19 and get this.
As long as at least half the units are affordable.
So it's not really specific. I get that you got them to issue it for this project, but if you qualify, you get the letter.
Correct.
It's not like a competitive process where, you did better than somebody else or you. Right?
No.
Okay. Because I mean, to me, this feels like when I file my taxes and I receive confirmation that I get a mortgage interest deduction, me then claiming that I have government assistance in my house. I'm getting a tax benefit, but the government's not really investing in my house. How is this different?
Because you're not a 501c3 developing low-income housing. I'm not trying to be.
I understand that, but the point is, I guess my point is there's active kind of government assistance and then there's passive government assistance. The government giving me a tax write-off is more of a passive form of government assistance. The government giving me a grant to do something with it, that was what I'd consider active. And I don't know that 830G distinguishes, but I'm distinguishing in my mind that those are two different things. And I'm equating what you're saying about this tax deduction or sales tax exemption to be similar to a passive form of assistance that any homeowner could receive.
Right, but this is also a program that was designed by the state to encourage development of low and moderate income housing. So I think there's more of a purpose behind it from the state's perspective.
But again, it wasn't a competitive process that you.
You qualify, you qualify.
Okay.
I have questions.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to assume that you've already done your homework and you know what you're legally allowed to do. So I want to focus on the last slide, which seemed to be two alternatives, the default and the alternative. And so I just want to understand, in both cases, it's the same building, but it's just a legal distinction on whether it's 60% or 80% of AMI. So is it true? So question one, is it true that there's only one design on the table and it's for 14 apartments? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And your assumption going in was, listen, we're going to not maximize coverage. And we're not going to maximize our height because we want to fit into the neighborhood a little bit. I mean, why didn't you maximize your height and your coverage if you could?
This is a philanthropic project, right? So we don't have the same financial impetus as a for-profit developer. And so the point was to build something that was worth building, right? We're not going to build 5 units, right? This is a lot of work for 14 units, but it's an unconscionable amount of work for 5 or 6 units. But not to go to 4 stories, that was a key design point. We on 122 Wilton Road in Westport, we're at 4 stories, 3 over parking. So there was a very conscious decision not to go to 4 stories, not to cover more of the site.
I think that I'm gonna make some assumptions of my own right now. I'm assuming that all the people behind you probably live in the neighborhood, and their first inclination is we'd rather not have multifamily in a single family neighborhood. But if we're gonna get one, we want the best possible one. And so my question is, would you be amenable to, because it sounds like based on what you just said, you want the best possible, good looking, fits in the neighborhood, something that works. Would you be willing to work with the town on the design, or is the design take it or leave it?
Well, it depends what you mean by work with, right? I mean, there was a time in New Canaan when Johnson and Neutra and Marcel Breuer, those buildings were absolutely reviled. There was a time in New Canaan where big cornices and turrets and moldings, that was acceptable, but that's not what's built today when people build single family houses. This is a contemporary design. This is the design that my architect designs. We built this kind of design in other locations. I like this design. I'm a reasonable person. If you have reasonable requests, I'm happy to work with you, but it's not going to end up at the end of the day looking like a bigger version of a spec house. And I would point out that Canaan Parish is a very contemporary design. I mean, it's very reminiscent. I mean, these two buildings are not that different, actually. Canaan Parish is a flat roof. It has kind of a spare facade. So it doesn't look like a house. And the decision not to use a peaked roof, by the way, that was very conscious to keep the height of the building down.
I agree with you. Canaan Parish is a successful contemporary design. This group approved it. And the initial reaction to Canaan Parish when it was in paper was negative because people said, oh my gosh, there's a lot of contrasting colors. And the developer said, wait a minute, it's not going to be an orange building when it goes up. It's going to be very tasteful. I think that's all I'm at. That was my ask. Yes, no. Are you willing to work with us? Or is it basically, are we looking at a confrontational take it or leave it stance?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, is he willing to work on the design? And second, we'll get, and second example, we just approved on South Avenue, I'm going to say 3,000 feet times 5, about a 15,000 foot building on a similarly sized lot. And it's attractive and nobody's complained about those condos. So I think it's possible. I don't think you should assume that we are hostile to multifamily. We approve them every month, but we usually get a little bit input on the design. And as my fellow commissioner pointed out, getting the parking not visible from the street might be one of those important things. And we might be willing to provide more volume in order to get that parking not visible from the street. I don't want to design this right here, but I just want to say that if it's going to go in, we just want the best possible multifamily in the neighborhood. And if you're willing to work with us, I'm encouraged.
Happy to work with you.
Can I jump in on that point? Okay. I made some notes so that I didn't mess this up. But first, I just wanted to commend your efforts to provide housing in a time when we need housing. And obviously, homelessness is surging. So your very thorough application helped with that. And I think it should be noted and appreciated that you clearly spent resources to put that together. So thank you, starting there. And while your application does not have to comply with our zoning regulations, I just wanted to implore you to take a little bit more time as stewards of the built environment and housing, and for the sake of doing good things the best way possible, to study the opportunity for this project to take on more of a contextual nature within the Heritage Hill and Great Hill neighborhood. Right around the corner, you find existing building stock that's reminiscent of your own Maple Tree and Maple Court apartments in Stamford. With that said, brick veneer is on the more expensive side of exterior siding options. So potentially you could expand your contextual research to the rest of New Canaan. Parish was already noted, but still just down the road at Husted Commons, you'll find shingle and stone siding materials, which are, again, objectively more expensive, but you can find synthetic materials, which I think you're already proposing, that are more reminiscent of the New England style, which I think would just speak to the neighborhood a little bit better. Again, taste is subjective, but I would argue that your current design is more suitable for an urban setting. You see that pretty frequently. I grew up in Michigan, and Lansing is filled with developments with these materials, and it's not great. And I think there's something really special and precious in the New Canaan Village that we're all here to support, and I think your project can do it. I kind of went off my notes here, but at the end of the day, your proposal seeks to add housing when housing is needed. And so I don't mean to claim that it's more important to look good than it is to be sheltered. I believe that the context is important and that our village charm is real and precious and that housing deserves to be beautiful. And while beauty may be subjective, the context here, the neighborhood, New Canaan, is not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chris, if I didn't notice it, if I missed it, forgive me, a formal traffic study, including pedestrian traffic?
We submitted sight lines, sight distance in the record. We did not complete a full traffic study.
Is there any reason?
Yeah, why not?
It's 14 units in a site plan. We didn't think it was necessary.
Anything above?
Traffic's not really a consideration for for this application.
Really? With this commission, anything above and beyond the currently zoned allotment, we would typically require a traffic study, whether it's 14 units or 400 units.
This particular intersection is already tricky. If you just drive a couple of times, scroll.
In addition, ma'am, not just traffic of vehicular traffic of visitors to the site, residents of the site, as well as various delivery vehicles that will visit the site. Let's be realistic, but also pedestrian. And there are no sidewalks in the area, and so it wouldn't. My own mind, it wouldn't be just vehicular issues, but also pedestrian issues, and particularly on the vehicular issues. Related to that, the parking, since you have to put the car somewhere, you mentioned the parking is similar to Millport. Similar is a rather flexible word, but I will say that I remember in, I think, testimony, I think it was before this commission, our housing authority discussed Millport and various other, for some other reason, and said that parking is extremely tight, and frankly, there was underparked was the term used. And so I put that as sort of a context for the amount of parking that might be needed given the number of units as well as number of bedrooms. Since you have a bedroom, it tends to be a person in the bedroom, maybe two people in the bedroom. Ages, we don't know. It could be multi-generational. We don't know. And again, if you have a couple, they tend to both work and maybe work in different areas where they need individual transportation. And again, street parking is a whole different issue. So I'll stop there and let you respond. Thank you, ma'am.
Repeating here, a term of the lease will be that there is only one car per unit, and that will be enforced. As I said, Mr. Friedman has experience with this, and I want to make that clear that we believe that the one space is sufficient. Again, consistent with your standard in Millport, and more importantly, would be enforced through the terms of the lease.
I hear you on experience, but in my own mind, each site is specific. And so depending on proximity to public transportation, we only have one choice in public transportation in town. Sidewalks, other factors would all affect those matters. And so again, what we would look for is specific experience, and again, a traffic study might be helpful to the commission. We often do require traffic studies so that we can better understand ingress, egress, sightlines in a formal way with trained, certified people who do this for a living. Would be quite, because I do note, since I think all of us have driven down Parade Hill many times, it's not that wide, it's narrow. There are many houses, relatively small lots, people moving in and out, often from fairly blind areas, and certainly public safety is a big deal. I mean, for me, public safety is sort of the number one thing when I think about any kind of development. If it's putting people's lives and property at risk, that's something I think very hard about. So my own mind, a traffic study might be helpful in clarifying these matters. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioners, anything further?
Yeah, I have other questions on the vouchers. Maybe Eric does too, I don't know, but so you have the letter from the Housing Collective saying that you're going to reserve units for vouchers and they're going to provide people with vouchers?
Yes.
So these are tenant-based vouchers, not project-based vouchers?
Correct.
And they are from which program?
Maybe David should.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think on this question, if we could have David Rich.
He's on there.
Is he on? Okay. David can answer the question for you. Thanks.
Sure. I'm David Rich, the president and CEO of the Housing Collective, a nonprofit organization based here in Fairfield County. We 100 agencies working to end homelessness and provide vital services to our most vulnerable neighbors throughout Western Connecticut. As the backbone for the Homeless Coordinated Access Network, or what we call the CAN, in Fairfield County. Our organization is responsible for managing over 1,000 vouchers for use by homeless individuals and families throughout the county. We place the homeless in rural, suburban, and urban communities throughout Western Connecticut. In fact, we have over 100 units of what we call permanent supportive housing for the homeless in the towns of Fairfield and Westport. And in both of those towns, we actually do have set-asides with garden homes, 19 units in Westport, and now just opening up 20 units for elderly and veteran homelessness in a new development built by Garden Homes in Southport. I'd be happy to refer you to officials, citizens in both Westport and Fairfield that have worked and supported the homeless in permanent supportive housing for the last 2 decades, and where they will certainly attest that they're part of the community and thriving. For this project and for set-asides for the homeless throughout Connecticut, and certainly here in Fairfield County, we carefully match families with developments and communities and provide wraparound services to ensure families not only thrive, but become important contributing members of their neighborhood. Permanent supportive housing for the homeless only works if it works for the families, if it works for the building, if it works for the neighborhood, and for the larger community. Be happy
Okay,
to
so
answer it.
these are vouchers for people who are eligible for permanent supportive housing?
Yes,
This
these
isn't
are
the
all
rental
homeless.
assistance program. This isn't the housing choice voucher program. This is for permanent supportive housing.
Yes, we use different vouchers to ensure that we do have the permanence. For permanent supportive housing to work, you need 3 things. One, you need the available unit. Sometimes these are what we call structured developments that are 100% for the set aside for the homeless. We prefer working what we call set asides, similar to this proposed project, where there are units set aside either by nonprofit or for-profit developers, owners within their existing or new developments. So first is having the unit. 2 is having the voucher. And we have a number of vouchers, as I said, over in Fairfield County alone, over 1,000. Some of these are federal vouchers directly to the homeless system. Some are through the housing authorities here in Fairfield County. Some are through the state of Connecticut, and those are called RAPs. And third, which is just as important, is services that follow these families into the units and stay with the families for as long as they reside in those units.
All right, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit and you lost me a little bit. Are there specific vouchers for permanent supportive housing, or are you just taking people who need permanent supportive housing and getting them housing choice vouchers or RAP vouchers?
Actually, we have both. Through the continuum of care, we have vouchers that are set aside specifically for the homeless. For other units, we set aside when we're given units for housing authorities, we attach the services and turn those into what we call permanent supportive housing. And for the state, it's a combination. Some are RAPs just for affordable, which we in turn provide services for, or sometimes they give and directly, specifically say those units are for the homeless for permanent supportive housing.
But you're not a voucher issuer.
No, we manage those. We manage those vouchers.
You help people get access to vouchers, but you don't actually hold the vouchers.
Some of the vouchers come through us, but largely it's through the collective system that we have through the continuum of care, where we're the backbone. We have hundreds and hundreds of units that come through the federal government and the state. But it's various different entities that actually administer the vouchers.
Right. So I guess, you're making an obligation to Garden Homes that you're going to provide a pipeline of people with vouchers, but you don't, as far as I can tell, actually control the pipeline of vouchers.
Oh, we very much control the vouchers in every way. And we've been doing this for 20
Don't the vouchers come from the Department of Housing?
Yeah, to us and to our system for us to place throughout Fairfield County. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. And I said over 1,000 vouchers in Fairfield
So do
County
you have
alone.
paperwork that shows that legal relationship between you and DOH? Because I was trying to do research today and your name did not appear as an entity that provides those vouchers.
Sure. As the backbone agency for the CAN, we are the ones that are responsible for implementing and bringing these systems together and targeting these units throughout the county.
Because it looked to me, based on my research, that J. D'Amelia and Associates is the contractor to the Department of Housing that then distributes the vouchers to, looks like 6 different housing authorities and the Thames Valley Council for Community Action. So I'm confused about where I understand affordable housing is a complicated space and it takes a village to make it happen, but I'm just confused about where you fit in.
Yeah. We're the ones who create the system that makes these permanent supportive housing work. We find the developers willing to set aside these units, in this case, Garden Homes. We find the vouchers that are set aside for the homeless system. Here it's for the coordinated access system in Fairfield County, and then find the wraparound services that these become permanent supportive housing for these units and for these communities. These resources are dedicated for the homeless in our system, and it's through a very specified system of creating a binding list for all the homeless in Fairfield County that these vouchers are matched to those families when units come and become available. Our job is to make sure that health system works. D'Amelia and Associates, yes, they do the paperwork on this. They by no means decide where these vouchers are going to go to, what families they're going to go to, what developments, or what services are provided.
So who signs the HAP contract when a person gets placed in the unit?
Depending on the voucher, it can be individual agencies, it can be the state through D'Amelia and Associates, or it can be the housing authorities.
But it's not you.
No.
Okay. So that brings me back to you're making an obligation to Garden Homes that you actually can't keep I mean, you're going to try to keep. I get that, but you.
Oh no, and I will give you 20 years of proof in being able to create these obligations and committed to these obligations throughout Fairfield County.
Okay, but you're not the one that actually would sign the contract with Garden Homes that somebody has a voucher that's going to be living in these units.
We do sign the contracts with the developers that we are committing these vouchers and these services to the units. That's our role as the backbone agency.
Okay, I'll move on from this because I feel like we're looping right now. But what happens if you can't find somebody with a voucher to live in these units?
We move on to the next family and move them in. Believe me, we will not have any issue finding families willing to work to live in New Canaan. And
that doesn't surprise me. I expected you would say that, but I'm just talking now hypothetically. I mean, we're supposed to approve this based on government assistance, based on the presumption that people with vouchers will come, that if we build it, they will come model. And I'm not saying that's false. I do think there's probably truth to that, but I'm not sure that constitutes government assistance. That constitutes kind of a prayer, maybe.
Prayer
like, how is that government assistance?
I respectfully say it's not a prayer that people would want to move to a home wherever it is throughout Connecticut. Homelessness is up 40% in Fairfield County over the last 4 or 5 years, not because we have the resources. We lack the housing. We lack the housing in the urban areas. We lack it in the suburban areas and in the rural communities. It's that fundamental lack of housing that has created this spike in homelessness. For the first time in 10 years, we have families on the streets. And what we lack is the housing, the house folks. We have the resources, we have the vouchers, we have the services. We simply lack the units, the house, our most vulnerable neighbors here in Fairfield County.
Okay, so I think what would help me going forward is some sort of flow chart that shows where the vouchers are coming from, how they flow through the Housing Collective, and how they get to Garden Homes, because as we just discussed, there's multiple entities involved in this, and I'm unclear about who has the legal authority to make a commitment if they don't actually
if they're not the administrator of the vouchers themselves. And so any additional information you can provide on that would be helpful to me.
We'll be happy to provide that.
Does the state issue the voucher to you, or does the state issue the voucher to the landlord?
Usually they issue it, it works both ways. Sometimes to the landlords, sometimes to the agencies we work with. Sometimes they do it, or often they do it through DeMilly & Associates as the back office to ensure that these vouchers go to the appropriate families that we provided them, and that these comply with state or federal laws.
Mr. Friedman, the Housing Collective, are they the only facilitator that you work with in these types of housing developments?
They'll be the only one on this project.
That wasn't my question. Are they the only facilitator you work with on your projects?
Yeah, we haven't done this on another project.
I see.
The projects have either been sold to nonprofits. So in Westport, they have both project vouchers and tenant vouchers. My understanding is from Homes with Hope. We run a project in Stamford. If a tenant comes in with a voucher, we're happy to take it, but we haven't set aside units for voucher holders. It's just 100% affordable. And most people come in under the income limit. They pay the rent without a voucher.
This Commissioner Kriz has a question for Mr. Rich, if I may. So let's say, for the sake of argument, just illustrative purposes, to keep it simple for me, there's a very well-designed, well-placed, affordable development that has 20 units. They're all 2-bedroom. And it's all voucher tenant. So, and let's say there are 100 people who would qualify for vouchers who are interested in living in that particular development. How do they get on the list, and how do they get on the head of the list versus number 4 on the list versus number 12 on the list? How does that work?
What we have is through the Coordinated Access Network. Let me say back 15 years ago, if someone was homeless, there would be 20, 30, 40 different ways they could enter to the homeless system and receive whatever resources different shelters had, different homeless service providers had. Now there's one access point to the homeless system in Fairfield County through the CAN. Folks are prioritized based on how vulnerable they are. And also depending on if they're youth, families, individuals, veterans, or the elderly, depending on what the needs are, the specs for the various developments. What we do with those that are most in need, most vulnerable, are the ones that get the permanent supportive housing. We don't have resources for all the homeless. In fact, we have resources for less, or permanent supportive housing resources for less than 5% of the resources. So those that are most in need for these vouchers, but for this, would continue to be on the streets, or the ones that get the access to these vouchers. And there's a list. There's a list created for every sub-region. We have this for the greater Stanford area, the greater Norwalk area, greater Danbury, and Bridgeport. When a unit comes available, we have matching meetings, which brings together the various homeless providers and that are providing services, and they go over the names of those folks that are highest on the list, and really discuss amongst themselves. These matching meetings take place every 2 weeks. Which families, individuals make the most sense for the development that comes up? Are there enough services there? Is it the right fit for that family or individual? And in the matching meeting, deciding what individuals, families will move forward with that empty vacant unit, which is attached to a voucher and services. At that point, it's working with, as I said, the various administrating entities to ensure that that voucher is placed in that unit, and then working with the nonprofit entity that's providing the long-term case management services for the individual or the family, that they're connected. They begin working with the families before they enter the unit to making sure they're actually viable. They can really fit into that development in that community, and then working with the owner or the property manager, asset manager of that unit to ensure that they have all the paper they work and an understanding of who's moving into that unit. It only works with that close collaboration between the owner, developer, property manager, the social service provider, and to the individual family or the family or the individual that's moving into that unit for the long term.
Yes, Mr. Rich, a follow up on a term you use, make sure it's the right fit. I'm not sure what that means. Could you tell me?
Doing this, and case managers and social workers have been doing this for years. I'm repeating myself a bit here. If it doesn't
That's all right.
work
We got time.
if it doesn't work for the development or the neighborhood, it's not going to work for everyone. I mean, we're in here for the long term. For example, we don't very rarely is it putting individuals with families. So as if we have set asides for families, we want to keep that development there just for families. For those that are the most in need, the most mentally ill, and have been on the streets for a long time, we're not going to put those folks or direct those folks to a market rate or a new development in New Canaan. We have larger, what we call structured initiatives, largely in the larger urban communities with nonprofits that have been working with those most high need families and individuals for the long term. If it's someone who doesn't have a car, it's not going to be putting them in an area where there's very limited transportation. If they're folks that need special needs, either physical or services, it's going to be putting them close to those services. So it's trying to craft developments with folks that actually can thrive in their developments and their neighborhoods.
Well, sir, you mentioned, for example, someone with maybe developmental disabilities or mental health issues may need some more, if I understood you correctly, sir, a more structured environment. I think somewhat for, let's say, elderly and assisted living, where they may need help with ADLs, activities of daily living, or something else where they need professional care of some sort. It can mean many things. And I sort of understand why they may need to be in a place where those services are immediately available to them, perhaps 24/7, even depending on the nature of the person's need. I sort of get that. But for some of the other ones, it seems more of a judgment call on a social worker that, well, we think this is better for you, go here. We think this is better for you, go there, as opposed to the objective criteria of the applicant. So I'm still perplexed on the sort of swing here, where there may be maybe directing people certain areas or other areas based on a judgment call by the person who's responsible for making these final decisions. So help me out.
It's a good question, and it's both are important there. Yes, very much. At the end of the day, it is a judgment. It is a judgment call with folks that are have been working in this field and have the skills and the and the training to help really determine where they're best fit. But at the end of the day, it is up to the individual family where they want to go. It's not forcing people, saying, okay, you're going to be in this development or this development. They have an option to look at different developments. We try to limit it to 3 so that we can just move and there's a flow, and we don't have logger jam as we're trying to house people throughout the county. But at the end of the day, it's up to the family to decide where they want to live.
You mentioned also, I guess, a ranking depending on the acuity of need of the person. If I understood you correctly, I may not be. I don't think you used that term, but you're nodding. I assume you're agreeing with my phraseology. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to my 20 unit voucher-only, well-designed, well-placed development. So let's say if you do this sort of rank order, which is I think where you're going with this, and so the people in the most need, let's say there are 30 of those, and they're all essentially equivalent as far as the nature of the need. So how do you decide which 20 get the unit and which 10 don't get the unit? How does that work?
We did, as you're talking about acuity, we did have more sophisticated screening mechanisms throughout the country on this, and find that many of them had their own innate bias within them. That we in most of the country has gone to a much more simplified version of just length of time homeless. So those that have been homeless the longest are the ones that are the highest on the list. But I want to be clear that that's where we our starting point. I think it's a good example is the Garden Homes project in Southport that's opening up next month. And there it's still determining whether it's going to be 15, 20 units out of the entire, Richard, I think it's 90 units that are going to be set aside for the homeless. And there it's trying to determine where we have the right match of resources for those folks. So there it's talking to the Veterans Association, the VA. They're very interested in taking 5 to 10 of those units. So it's placing, we'll be setting aside 5 or 10 of those units for veterans through their funding, for their funding mechanisms, and they have their own ranking system for them. The agency we're working with for the social services, in this case, will be Homes with Hope in Westport. They and their board has a real interest of fundraising and supporting seniors, who is the most rapidly rising segment of our homeless population. So there'll probably be 5 to 7 of those units set aside for those over 65. So it would be then ranking that subset of the homeless that are over 65 for that development. So while we start with one ranking system, then it all comes down to how do we match that with the resources we have, with the agencies that are willing to provide those resources and commit to that building. So at the end of the day, it is. Yes, it is a judgment call amongst the various parties that are involved in this, to determine how we're going to make this as sustainable as possible and house as many of the most vulnerable that we possibly can in these developments over the long term.
Well, certainly if it's a judgment call on the part of the tenant and they say, well, I want to live here because my Aunt Bertha lives down the street and I want to see her, I'm not there to run that person's life. And if they feel that's what's best for their quality of life, more power to you. I just want to, my concern would be that the decisions are made, if there's a judgment call, it's on the part of the tenant as opposed to anyone else. So we're dealing with objective criteria. Also, just last question, I thank my commissioners for indulging me, but you mentioned the neediest people tend to come to the top of the list. And you're nodding, so we're on the page there. It's my understanding that there are only 2 at-grade or ADA accessible units within the development. Is that correct?
There's 2 handicapped adaptable units at grade.
And so the other 12 would not be amenable to anyone who is, let's say, in a wheelchair?
No.
Okay. And so the high acuity, and I assume being in a wheelchair sort of moves you up the acuity list. So those people would not be, except for these 2 possible units, would not be eligible for this particular development. So Mr. Rich is nodding. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So, but if they are, we're looking for units throughout the county. So if there are folks that are very high on this list that have physical disabilities, it's searching high and low throughout the county for units for those folks. So just because they're not getting into these units in Garden Homes doesn't mean they're going to be precluded from housing somewhere in the county. Yeah, but I take your point here. It is more difficult with those with disabilities to find permanent housing for them. Absolutely.
Would there be a possibility for the development to be changed to have a either one of those what I call it movable chairs up and down, there's the rail up and down the stairs, or an elevator within the building to accommodate people with these particular needs?
The key in keeping the cost of this project down is not to have an elevator. That's absolutely critical. It's critical for the nonprofit that's going to end up owning this building that they not have the cost of maintaining an elevator, and it's critical for us in terms of constructing the building that we not have to fund putting in an elevator. The other projects we built using from the Garden Homes Fund have been walk-ups. So this is no different.
That's my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You mentioned that two of the units, and I forget how you phrased it, are ADA adaptable?
Correct.
What does that mean?
There's handicapped accessible and there's handicapped adaptable. They're called type A and type B units. There's no requirement for type A units in any building under 20 units in Connecticut. So we're obviously under that. Any unit that can be accessed by someone needs to be handicapped adaptable, which means that the grab bars may not be in the shower, for example, but the backing is there behind the shower enclosure, behind the shower walls, that a handicap bar could be put in. The doors are wide enough, right? The doors are constructed to be wide enough. There's enough push-pull space next to the door that someone could spin a wheelchair around. Someone could spin a wheelchair around in the bathroom, right? So that's what handicapped adaptable means. If someone were to move in who's handicapped, the unit could be adapted to them.
So none of your units currently are handicap adaptable?
Two of them are handicapped adaptable.
Not at all.
None of them are handicapped accessible.
None of them are.
Two of them are type B units. It's
Two
right
of
on
them
the
are
floor
not,
plan.
because you don't have, we can get into the semantics, but you don't have the turn radiuses, you don't have the push-pull clearances. You might have the door width, but all of the other criteria are not met. So
Well,
there's a higher level than what you're showing.
two of them are type B units.
I disagree.
Well,
I'm an architect. I get it. I've been doing this for 40 years. So
okay. Well, that's how my architect designed them and laid them out. He ran up through the codes, and
I'm just giving you a heads up.
okay.
When you say, I'm sorry, the gentleman on the from the collective, Mr. Rich, is it?
Yes.
You mentioned, to Commissioner Chris's point, placing the right people. Given this location, lack of sidewalks, lack of public transportation, distance from downtown, from any retail or trains, distance from schools, I'm assuming you're going to be placing people that have vehicles.
Yes, very much so. And since this will be the first in New Canaan, yes, we're going to be careful in the families. Again, the last thing we want is a project that does not fit, or with families moving into don't fit into their community. And again, as I hope you will reach out to my colleagues and peers and your peers in Westport, in Fairfield, where we've been doing this work for over 20 years with a lot of community support. This works for no one if it doesn't work for the communities.
Couple other points for the default and alternate plan. Obviously, the alternate plan, giving the affordability metrics of the different types, it's going to generate additional HUE units for the town. Now, normally that would be a great incentive, but in this case, your application itself is a prime example why should we care about HUE units? I mean, we as a town have been working hard to get to a moratorium and earn HUE units so that we have better control over the development of housing in town. For this type of an application that then can come before us that completely ignores the moratorium. So what makes you think there's an incentive to go to higher units? Because
At some
you're
point,
kind
your
of- you're
moratorium
kind
is
of- let
going
me-
to
sorry,
expire.
Let me finish. So you're kind of, I won't say threatening, but you're throwing the gauntlet down by saying that the incentive to provide for the alternate plan is that it would be approved without delay or litigate, that the purpose of submitting the second is that it would provide an incentive for the project to be approved without delay or litigation.
Yes.
So you assume that the litigation will only happen if we go to the alternate plan? I'm not sure what the.
No, if we're saying the alternate plan, if you were to approve the application, the alternate plan governs. And that's the incentive. That if you were to approve, the town gets 2.5 times. And that's based on the fact that at some point your moratorium will expire. You will want to know how many points you have. And that's putting aside the fact that there's a need for affordable housing in town. So if the default
There's a need for deed restricted affordable housing.
would probably submit, there's even a need for lowercase a affordable housing. But if the application were denied and we're confronted with needing to appeal and spend a year, time, money, et cetera, if not more, pursuing an appeal, then we would go to the default plan, which only has the 10 HUE points for the town.
So essentially, we need to be approving the default plan because you guys solely control whether we get the alternate plan or not. It's up to your discretion.
We're saying on the record that if you approve it, the condition, we would accept a condition if you approved that the alternate plan be the one that governs.
It's kind of the reverse, isn't it?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. We have to assume we're approving.
We're approving the
default.
alternate plan as the default plan. And if we don't approve that, then the alternate plan is to give us the default plan and stick in litigation.
You're right. That's fair.
I mean,
However,
it's a circle jerk.
However you'd like to phrase it. The one that the 26, that results in the 26 HUE points, if you approve the application, we will abide by.
That's your preferred application.
Yes.
Okay, so
Wait, which one is the alternate?
the first one.
Right, the 26 points.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Commissioner Chris again. In the 26 HUE point plan, I'll call it that, it's easier to remember. It also says that you wouldn't be in litigation with a third party. Now, of course, our control over third parties is between Slim and none, and Slim just left the building. So we have no control over that. And your attorney is nodding, saying, yep, he understands we have no control over that. In some developments, there have been interveners. Has happened. I'm sure you're aware of it. They're being interveners allowed by state law. It's a free country. This is America. If they want to do it, they can do it. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's their choice.
Correct.
We have our discretion. They have their discretion. And so this commission could dot every I, cross every T, do everything. And then a third party might enter litigation with you regarding this. And the 26 HUE point plan then would go, I think, disappear. Am I understanding this correctly, ma'am?
You are understanding that correctly. And again, for the reason that time is money, we understand that the commission may have questions about that. But I think at the end of the day, it still comes down to the fact that if we face an appeal, we are looking at probably at minimum a year to resolve. And that means Mr. Friedman's and the fund's money's tied up. They can't sell, they can't move on to a different development, et cetera. So understood. I think the other important consideration
Yes,
in
ma'am.
that context is that if you were to approve an application, that is a different record than if you denied an application. And we would basically be on you approving and an intervener or neighbor appealing results in a pretty clear record that you are making a finding that there are no public safety issues, that there are, the need for affordable housing outweighs, and I think is a very different situation. And we would take that into consideration. But I do think the fact that that's a real consideration for us.
Well, consideration and legal contract are not quite the same thing.
I understand that.
I think we do too. I'm not a lawyer. And so I guess the thing I wanted to clarify what you have is that the applicability of this plan, assuming it has legs legally, and I'm going to punt on that question for the moment, that the success of that is completely beyond the control of this commission because a third party could intervene or sue. We can't control that. It's America. You can sue anybody for anything you want, as you just nodded. So you agree with me on that. And
understood.
I think the general counsel is smiling and nodding too. So we're on the same page there. And so again, my own concern would be that, well, how do we control that? And if we think that perhaps that might happen, that's a dog that won't hunt. Might be a consideration. I don't know. It's for the commission to decide, not for me. I'm only one voice, but I just wanted to clarify exactly the logistics. And I to my satisfaction, you have clarified that for purposes of this discussion. So
understood.
Thank you.
Great. We should probably think about moving on. Do
Yeah.
other people, since we're going to be hearing from you again, and I'm assuming at the next meeting, Dan, we're taking public comment?
We are.
Okay. So does anyone else on the commission have things that they want the applicant to provide or bring so that, we're getting the fullest amount of information as we can?
I'd like to see a proper traffic study,
Including pedestrian traffic?
including pedestrian traffic. Because as Mr. Rich said, even though they will try to place people with vehicles, there's no guarantee of who's going to be placed here. And I think the last thing we want to avoid is placing someone in an affordable housing unit that has no vehicular transportation, is forced to walk down roads and streets and 123 that has no sidewalks, and put them in harm's way.
And I will note, I used to live in a place in New Canaan where I walked from the train. It was like close to a mile. I'm that guy who does those sorts of things. And it was no sidewalks, and I was crossing the busiest state highway in town. And fortunately, I was young and quick at the time, but it's a real safety issue in my opinion. And certainly we wouldn't want anybody hurt. I do have one thing I would like to delve into more detail I'm sorry, please.
Just one procedural question. We've submitted this as a site plan application. You have the option to hold a public hearing, a true public hearing, or you can take public comment on a site plan application. I just want to be clear what your intention is, just to take public comment in the context of the site plan application, or are you asking for a sort of true noticed public hearing, everything else, or just allowing public comment? And obviously the reason is legal notice and the like, so I just want to be.
It's an 830G
So no.
application. What do you think?
I've seen both.
Very rarely. It's a full public hearing.
Okay.
So can we just clarify, are we doing it on March 31st, the next regularly scheduled meeting? Are we holding a special meeting to have the public hearing just for, agenda management purposes?
What else do we have coming up on March 31st?
A lot. Not necessarily a lot. I mean, I don't know what will happen with our next application, so that dictates it a little bit. I don't know if we are going to have an executive session at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
I would say March 31st.
So for the applicant, March 31st would be, when we would notice and when we would need, you to mail. Yep.
And that's why I wanted to make the clarification.
Provided you can do the traffic study and get that submitted beforehand.
A lot of time. But
We read the letters to the editor, and I just point out that we're not being combative when we ask for a traffic study. Most of the letters coming in, I would say it's the greatest concern from the neighborhood, because the Parade Hill is a fast winding street with no sidewalks. A lot of the neighbors are already upset before you ever arrived at how fast, because most of the traffic from the ways is rerouted off of Onoke onto Parade Hill. And so we've got to do something about this anyway. So this is an opportunity to do a traffic study and show everybody that this is, that we can get this under control.
And Smith Ridge Road, the state highway, is clearly the fastest road in town. And that's with that, not counting the speeding that goes on the road. And that's a very popular ingress and egress for people going to downtown. There's one other topic that I would like to probably go into a bit more detail when you rejoin us at the next meeting. And that has to do with the screening and landscaping design. It's a personal interest of mine, but we've had a number of neighbors who have brought this up, and I legitimately in my mind regarding screening for what is a larger development than many others, as well as there's the significant parking lot in the front of the dwellings, and perhaps screening there. So your ideas from a certified landscape architect and how to do that in an effective way would be something I think many people would find of interest.
Yeah, we can absolutely go through the landscaping plan with you and talk about what we're showing. We didn't get into any of that tonight. So.
Understood, but I think the issue is not just a couple nice looking trees, which
yeah, I
is
saw
fine,
the public comment.
but true screening, which still can be accomplished with the right choice of vegetative material. So thank you.
Tack onto that, but given that it's 2 to 3 bedrooms, where is the play space for the families outside?
We could put one in. New Canaan seems to have a wealth of play spaces, so it actually didn't seem necessary for 14 families, but we certainly, because we did not cover the whole site, we have room for a small playground, and I would be happy to put one of those in.
But I know the egress is just in the front, so they would be wrapping around to the back, I imagine, is where the available area is.
In the backyard. Yeah, it would be in the backyard.
But the only egress is in the front to the
Correct.
building.
If I may, further on the issue that Commissioner Larson brought up on playing, I mean, the Canaan Parish, which I'm going to call the affordable housing pride of the community, before it was redeveloped, the playing area tended to be at the end of the drive, sort of in a couple empty parking spots. It wasn't great, I'll say. And one of the factors, or one of the matters that was very heavily considered, and I think successfully so, in that development was a real area for children to play, since there are children on the site. And many people like having children on the site because you're a block from a public school. And so having something for children who can play there, as opposed to maybe oozing out in the street, which I was a kid, I'd played in the street too, but on Parade Hill, it may be not the safest choice for children. And so something to help direct them into a safer location for recreation and companionship might be a nice idea.
Can I have a word here? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Swerdlow, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I was listening to some of the comments about the facade design. I really think you need to rethink what you're doing here and do something that has more distinctive quality to it. The idea of working with us on this is very appealing, but I think you should, at this point, at least come up with some alternative ideas.
Anybody else, commissioners?
I'd like to follow that up because like, what the hell does that mean, right? Typically, I think our housing authority did a lot of research, went through this process, thought about everything like the width of a parking spot and turning radius and everything. And so if I was going to give you one piece of advice, it would be to get your architect to talk to them and ask them, what did you learn from the process to get approved in New Canaan? Because you don't want us designing it. We don't want to design it. And your architect's going to be like, well, you know, what the heck do they want? Ask our housing authority. Scott Hobbs and the folks on that board went through this process very successfully. And maybe we could satisfy Mr. Swerdlow, you know, in the first meeting.
So
consider it.
I'll have the final note on that. We actually took a very active role in the materials and design discussion on Canaan Parish back then. It wasn't just the housing authority.
I'm trying to save them 3 months of that.
I'm not trying to save them anything, which brings me to my second point. I can appreciate your concern on cost and that you're interested in expediting the process, but I think it's quite naive to come in here thinking that it wouldn't be a full public hearing and application on this type of an application in this town, knowing what we've been through with 830G applications. With that said, I really don't care if it costs you more. Our purview is not to save you money. Our purview is to protect the town's interest, protect the town's safety, and protect the integrity and feel of the town. Since according to the state, we can't say character, but we can say feel. So that's our mission. And we're more than willing to work with you. But there's got to be some flexibility, and it can't be a simple answer as, no, it's too expensive.
That's well said.
Until we see each other next, oh, sorry.
I have a non-architectural question.
Absolutely.
So I was just listening to Mr. Rich in terms of his description of the organization that he supports and the type of mission that they have in terms of helping homeless come off the street and find permanent supportive housing and have them develop, more secure lives, through these additional services. And then I'm also looking at the AMI metrics that you have and trying to reconcile that vision with your vision, because they seem to be a little at odds, because the permanent supportive housing that he's describing seems to be more at the 30% AMI, $30,000, $40,000 annual income. And the 80% that you're dictating is more in the $80,000, $90,000 range. And I'm just trying to understand, is this a project? The other thing that's apparently quite controversial in this area is, what happens when that family does get on their feet and starts earning more money? And then, the conflict there, is it permanent regardless of how much money you make, or is there a transition? And just, you mentioned you're going to sell the transaction. So after you construct it, you're out. And I'm just understanding who's going to, if we're really looking for these to be valuable for the town, how can we as a commission, after we invest this time, invest in you, be certain that these are going to be turned over to have these, similar situations 5 years hence, instead of just having people move into them, get to the higher levels and then basically lock them up? So who's going to manage that turnover and the annual audits?
Well, presumably whatever nonprofit purchases the project will be responsible for ongoing compliance. I mean, that's pretty standard under 830G. There's an affordability plan that governs for 40 years. I want to build the higher level of affordability. I would not have offered it if I didn't want to do that. That's not 80%. That's not market. That's 50%, which for a 2-bedroom is $67,000, and some at 60%, which is $80,000 for a family of more or less a family of 4.
Yep.
The vouchers technically are restricted to 50% of AMI. I think David would probably tell you that more commonly they're probably 25 or 30% of AMI, which is 40,000. So we have kind of a stair step, right? We have some people at 40,000, we have some at 60, we have some at 80. The ongoing compliance is, as I said, will be managed by whoever owns it. But, this is something I've thought about a lot. This is something I've done a lot. And we have buildings like this. So if someone goes over income in a 60% unit, they can move into an 80% unit. And if you look at the guts of the 26-point plan, you will see that there are over income provisions that comply with state regs, which is that if you go up to 125% of the income that you had when you moved in, you can stay indefinitely. So you could, if you came in at 60, at some point you could go to an 80, you could go up to 125% of that. That would be 100. Once you go over 100, you would have to vacate. But that gives people a real opportunity to do better and stay and not have to leave. It's impossible to find housing, certainly in New Canaan, at an income under 100,000, I would say. Rental housing, it's very difficult to find a 2 or a 3 bedroom. So we're giving people a long time to improve their lives before they have to move out.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Because I think what I was trying to do is just reconcile the voucher application, because it appears the vouchers are only applicable to a subset of that.
Right. Yeah, and those.
So you said the 30 to 40% AMI. So it seems like the vouchers would only apply to 20% of the project.
5 units, which is something over 30% of the project. So I think David would tell you that mixed income works better.
It does.
That's why the building is not 100% vouchers. Right? Assisted housing is housing it's occupied by people receiving rental assistance under, right?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to understand the way you're breaking it up. So what you explained was super helpful. I just didn't see that articulated in the plan. So thank you.
Commissioners, anything further tonight? Okay, this meeting is continued. We'll see you on March 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say, if you'd like to discuss design or materials, feel free to reach out to Sarah, and we'll be happy to discuss. There's the crowd. Hope someone's left for Frogtown. Is that the school? It's the school, yeah.
There's Mr. Finn.
Mr. Finn is left.
He's up on the screen.
Mr. Finn is on the Zoom.
Good points. Okay. We're going to take a 3-minute bathroom break. Sure.
What time are we starting up again? 3 minutes. What time are we starting up again?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say 55.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Next application, item 4 on the agenda, 635 Frogtown Road. Upon application of Steve Finn, Wolfsey, Rosen, Kriansky, LLP, authorized agent for New Canaan Country School owners, for a special permit approval pursuant to section 6.4G and 6.5B4 to permit soil disturbance in excess of 10,000 square feet, grading of material in excess of 1,000 cubic yards, and the construction of a retaining wall, portions of which will exceed 4 feet in height, in connection with the alteration of 3 existing athletic fields, 2 of which will be converted to artificial turf on property in the 2-acre zone at 635 Frogtown Road, map 25, block 12, lot 160. Welcome. Please turn your microphones on. Just give it a hard press to green. And feel free to kick in and start and tell us your name and your association with the project.
Actually, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I hope you can hear me. I'm on the Zoom.
Yes, we can. Welcome.
All right. Well, I am going to lead off. For the record, it's Steve Finn here representing the New Canaan, the New Canaan Country School in connection with this project. I want to introduce the team to you, starting from your far left. That is Mr. Aaron Cooper, head of school for New Canaan Country School. And then Christopher Hulk is next to Aaron. He's a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut working with the company Field Turf, who will be doing the work on the fields. And then Tom Nelson of McCord Engineering, who is also a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut, who worked with Mr. Hulk on the fields, but also is responsible for the inland wetlands application, the drainage plan, and the stormwater management report. And then to Tom's left is John Neal. He's head of operations of the New Canaan Country School. Before turning it over to the team for a more detailed presentation, I want to provide the commission with a brief history and a brief overview of the pending special permit application. New Canaan Country School was founded in 1916. It has been an integral part of New Canaan for 110 years and is a very highly regarded school for students from pre-kindergarten through the 9th grade. It is a very community-minded school, offering scholarships to needy students and allowing Horizons, a program for the underprivileged, to use its campus during the summer. It also works with other New Canaan organizations such as New Canaan Cares, the library, the Glass House, the Winter Club, New Canaan Baseball, and provides other services to our community. Importantly, New Canaan Country School has been at its current location on Frogtown Road since 1936, 90 years. It comprises approximately 76 acres and is located in the 2-acre zone. As this commission knows, a school use in a residential zone is authorized by special permit under section 3.2.C.7 of the New Canaan zoning regulations. However, since New Canaan Country School has been located at its current location since 1936, it predates the enactment of zoning regulations for New Canaan and does not require a special permit to operate as a school. The pending application was required only because the proposed fields project involves excavation and grading of more than 100 cubic yards and soil disturbance of more than 10,000 square feet. Section 6.4.g of the zoning regulations provides that excavation, grading, and soil disturbance in those amounts requires a special permit. In addition, the project calls for the construction of a retaining wall, which for part of its length will exceed 4 feet in height. At its highest, the retaining wall will reach 5 feet 9 inches, but at that point, the wall is more than 400 feet from the nearest property line. Under section 6.5.b.4, retaining walls can exceed 4 feet in height with a special permit. Thus, under the New Canaan Planning and Zoning Regulations and Connecticut law, if the proposed project, the excavation, grading, and soil disturbance, and the retaining wall satisfy the criteria for granting a special permit, the application should and must be granted. Now, before turning it over to the rest of the team for the details, I want to summarize the project for you and provide some specific points that may anticipate some of your questions and concerns raised by a neighbor. As you will hear from Chris Hulk shortly, the project involves the renovation and upgrading of existing fields and does not involve the creation of any new fields. The 2 most easterly fields will be converted from grass to artificial turf. Immediately to the west of those fields is another field which will remain grass but will be improved. And further to the west of that field is a 4th field, which is also a natural grass field. The plans submitted with the application showed some improvements to that 4th field, including the placement of some concrete pads. But the country school has decided not to include those improvements to the field at this time, so that is no longer part of this application, though there is going to be a replacement of an existing backstop on that field. Now on to some important specific points. The renovated fields will not be any closer to the property lines than the existing fields. The proposed retaining wall is over 400 feet from the nearest property line. There is no intention to increase enrollment in connection with this project. No increases in traffic are expected to result from this project. The fields are not expected to be used at night, and no illumination of the fields are called for in the plans. No permanent sound system is proposed. Currently used items, perhaps a megaphone on occasion, may continue to be used. There are going to be scoreboards, and Chris can elaborate on what's set forth in the plans about the scoreboards. There are inland wetlands located to the east of the fields. An inland wetlands application was filed and has already been approved. And I believe Sarah has a copy of the permit that has been issued. Importantly, the town engineering department has already approved the project. The health department has already approved the project, and the fire marshal has already approved the project. As is the customary procedure for New Canaan Country School, it sent letters to all the neighbors within 100 feet back in late November or early December, inviting them to a meeting in early December to learn more about this specific project. There were only a handful of neighbors who appeared, and none of them raised any questions or objections at that time. Aaron Cooper will address you next. He will be followed by Christopher Hulk and then by Tom Nelson. Before turning it over to Aaron Cooper, does anyone have any questions for me? Hearing none, Aaron, I'll call upon you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing our application. As Steve said, my name is Aaron Cooper. I'm the head of school at New Canaan Country School. I've been the head of school for 8 years at NCCS. Since its founding in 1916, Country School has had a very similar mission, which is to educate children ages 3 through 15 and develop them intellectually, physically, socially, and emotionally so that they can grow to be happy, healthy, and successful 30-year-olds and beyond. We currently enroll 572 students in beginners, which is 3-year-olds, through grade 9. I wanted to say a few words about why we are pursuing this project. The first is since the founding of the school's had a belief in the importance of outdoor learning for the comprehensive education of children. And at this time, given today's world, the ubiquity of technology, the reality of children's schedules outside of school hours and so forth, we believe that outdoor learning is at least as important as it has been, if not more important than when the school was founded. As Steve mentioned briefly, this application is a part of a larger commitment on the school's part to improving our outdoor learning spaces for our students. The second reason we're pursuing this project has to do with our program. The school has long believed that interscholastic athletics for children that we serve is an important part of their education. And as such, all students from grades 5 through 9 participate on interscholastic athletic teams. We additionally have a more traditional physical education program for our younger students, grades 4 and below, as well as recess twice a day for all of our students. The fields will impact all of those, most primarily the athletic program. The third reason we're pursuing this project is the playability of our fields. The reality of grass fields in New England is that they are not usable as often as we would like. And in fact, as we were contemplating this project, we did a study looking 5 years back and learned that a full 20% of the practices and games we had scheduled had to be canceled or moved inside as a result of the playability of our fields. Spring sports started last week, and even with today's weather and tomorrow's weather, it will be several weeks before our spring sports teams are able to use the fields. The final reason we're pursuing this project is around safety from a couple different components. First is that field hockey is one of the sports that we offer, and our understanding of sort of standard field hockey regulations at this point in time is that field hockey is a turf sport.
that no matter how well graded and maintained a grass field is, given the positioning of the players and the hardness of the ball, there's bouncing and injuries and so forth that can result. Beyond that, there are a number of deferred maintenance issues that we face. One is that we have a lack of irrigation on our fields, and so as often as we need to cancel our sports practices or games due to very wet weather, when we have a very dry season, that impacts the safety and playability of the fields for our students as well. Additionally, in recent years, we've had a recurrence of sinkholes on the fields that we are changing from grass to turf. Our understanding of that is that when they were constructed 30 or 40 years ago, the trees that had existed in that location were buried underneath the field. And over 30 or 40 years, those trees decompose, and then there's air where there used to be tree, and the soil fills that air and creates that sinkhole effect. Thirdly, we have a path. We have a pretty significant grade on our campus. Throughout the entirety of the campus, we have a gravel path that goes from some of the upper fields towards the lower fields. At any time there is a significant rainstorm, there's quite a bit of erosion on that path that flows into the field and needs to be cleaned up. And a different design of that path is a part of this plan to mitigate that circumstance. And then finally, the state has regulations around the use of fertilizers and pesticides for school fields. Wisely, in our opinion, it does mean that the appropriate and proper maintenance of and preparation of a grass playing field is that much more challenging for schools. With that, I'll pause and turn it to Chris to speak about some of the engineering details. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Chris Hulk. I'm a licensed professional engineer here in Connecticut. I am with Field Turf here on behalf of the applicant. So just wanted to run through a little bit of the semi-recent history of the site. Obviously, the school has been around for a much longer period of time than this, but aerials only go back so far. So on the top left for you guys, the 1994 aerial shows the school very similar to how it was developed for the buildings. You can see kind of on the left middle portion of the screen, the fields are currently there, dating back 30 plus years. As we move over to 2003, one change is that one of the fields that will be redeveloped as synthetic turf now comes into play. That's kind of top middle of the page. Not major differences for the actual school itself. As we move on to 2016, very similar to how it was in 2003. And then as we move over to 2025, you can see some of the building improvements that were done with the athletic center. You can see the field still in a very similar location. So the general point of that being that these fields have been there for quite a number of years, and the school has made use of them for quite a long time. To give you a little bit of an idea of how the site operates, so north is left on the page, bottom is west. So the elevation differences on site are pretty dramatic. As you go from the most upper field that has the baseball field on it, down to the middle field being elevation around 365. That's one of the fields we're going to be redeveloping as grass. As we move further down slope, north up on the page and east on the property, you get to elevation about 340, and then existing elevation of the secondary field at 335. That starts to lead us into why that retaining wall is required. And then as we get further into the property, on the further east of the property is where the wetland areas are. Those are in the range of 275 to 250. So just trying to display that, there's a significant grade change between the wetland areas and even between the fields themselves. As you can see, kind of moving around the site here, these kind of blue areas are just to highlight the general locations and not the actual area of improvement. I'll get into that in just a minute. But, substantial vegetation all the way around the site. We don't plan to take down any of the trees that are around the east side or north side. There are a couple of trees between the fields that we will try to relocate, but we will also be adding several trees. The only reason those ones are getting moved or replaced is to help accommodate the new drive aisle. Just wanted to, on this next existing conditions map, highlight a couple things. One, again, the area field improvements, and kind of give you a little bit of a display of the general conditions of the fields. As you can see on the kind of left topmost field, that's at elevation 340. Significant wear patterns. As we move to the other fields, you can see then, even with the best practices that the school has, and, school does have substantial resources to try to make these fields playable, you can see that the condition really makes it challenging for the kids to be able to play on there. The best way that we'll be accessing these fields is through the kind of yellow line that we have highlighted there. But in general, wanted to show you, even though these fields have substantial ability to be maintained, they still really lack the ability to have safe, consistent play for the school. Knowing that is really important to the school to have consistent outdoor learning space and outdoor activity space, they wanted to make sure that they could provide that for their students. The last one here that I'll show for the existing conditions is, again, the area of development, but now we are looking at it more or less from Frogtown Road over at the site. Again, trying to demonstrate that there is significant a vegetated buffer, and kind of give you an idea of just the areas that are getting built. I didn't have an aerial for this one that had the new building on it, so I kind of tried to highlight it there on the bottom right of where the athletic center is. But some of the things that just want to point out so that you can see them is there's a Little League / softball diamond on the field, kind of the southeasternmost field. That is one of the fields that's going to be redeveloped as synthetic turf. So we needed to find a new home for that softball infield. As you can see, the areas of development are currently there. They've been there for a long time. We're maintaining all the same drainage patterns. And, we're not changing any of the grades significantly. They'll all be within about a foot or so of what they currently are. The space that's out there is green. The space previously, in the future will be green. But some of the things that we really try to improve are access, playability, and safety. So here's a 3D rendering of the plans. So again, the areas on the right side of the screen or east side of the page will be the synthetic turf fields. Those are going to be EPDM rubber fields. There was a desire to make sure that we stayed kind of, we'll say, in compliance with the general theme of the rest of the fields that are in New Canaan. Additionally, knowing that safety is always something of concern, the school decided to go basically with upgraded rubber to make sure that they had the best available materials being used. What EPDM rubber is it's virgin rubber. It's the same type of rubber that you might use for, say, water valves or toys or things like that, as opposed to crumb rubber, which comes from crushed up tires. So this is virgin rubber made specifically for these fields. As we move a little bit towards the center portion of the page, you can see there's a new pathway shown there. That pathway will be a more stable surface with Belgian block edging of it to help make sure that the rainwaters do not wash it out. We are making sure that pathway does get ADA accessibility both to the fields and help to get a better traverse around the site. Currently, that pathway, instead of bending to the left, it basically goes straight down the hill, washes out constantly. Is a real problem for maintenance and for safety of just getting around the fields. As you can imagine, if kids are out the furthest field and you need to be able to get them to an ambulance or get somebody out there to even watch the game, to be able to have an improved access to be able to get out there was really important to the school as well. A couple of the things that we added as just improvements from overall playability to make sure that the use is staying within to the site is we will have some fencing that's going around the fields. That'll be on the southern, eastern, and northern sides. The western side will have limited fencing to make sure that it maintains the kind of open and inviting feel that the campus has. As you can see in kind of between the fields and hopefully on the northern and southern sides, we have ball safety netting. That's a netting system that can go up and down during each season that helps to keep the balls just basically on the field of play. So you're not kicking balls into the neighbor's house or down the street or something like that. So want to make sure that the ball is staying within the field of play. As we work over to the left side, that's where we're going to be able to put the new softball infield. So that existing grass field that's there will have some new ball safety netting put up, and basically putting the softball infield as far from the neighboring property as we could. We could have fit it on the opposing corner, but at that point you would have a lot more foul balls and things like that getting into the neighboring properties. So we try to keep it as far away from there as we could while still being able to fit in a regulation size field. So the ball safety netting that's there will be a 20-foot tall ball netting that will stop soccer balls and those types of things from leaving the property. As Steve mentioned, none of the areas of improvement are expanding on what the existing locations are. So we feel that it really fits into the site well. It really does a lot to help maintain and improve the overall usability of the site. The last item that I'll mention is on the bottom right-hand corner. That is currently a practice space. It's undersized for an overall field. That area is going to be basically used as our staging area. So one of the key factors that we felt would really be a benefit to the overall community from this project being built is to not remove all the soil from the site. As part of the application being over the 10,000 square feet. Each field is in the 70 to 80,000 square foot range. So one of the things that we have to do is take the topsoil off so that we don't get those sinkholes and ruts and things like that when you put the turf on. But instead of shipping that off site and having potentially hundreds of trucks being added to the neighborhood, we're going to add that and just stage it onto the existing playing area and then regrade it so that the field will basically just be lifted 2 to 3 feet and maintain the topsoil on site and not have to leave it.
Sorry, is that the area there?
Yeah. So the staging area, and that'll be finished as a grass field, very similar to how it is now, just a couple of feet higher.
And sorry to interrupt, but while we're there, will there be any retaining wall construction associated with that area?
There will not. No.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the next thing that I wanted to just touch on a little bit is how the constructability of these fields go. I'm sure you guys deal with applications all the time that are, maybe subdivisions or buildings, and you're dealing with that construction going on for months, if not years. Knowing that this is a school, our timeline to be able to build this is about 3 months. We're projected to be able to start hopefully in June and then be completed with the project right in the beginning of September. Trying to complete everything while the kids are not there. So the first thing that happens is the topsoil gets removed from the site. That'll get stockpiled onto that staging area we were talking about. We then prep the subgrade. So if we're working from top left on the page, basically leveling out the area that's already pretty level, but then we put in the storm drainage piping that goes around the edging. The entirety of the field has a concrete turf anchor curb that goes around it. A couple of reasons that we do the anchor curb is 1, it holds the turf in place. And 2, it makes it so that we don't have to disturb great large areas outside of the field. It gives us a little bit of leeway to make sure that grades work appropriately, and we don't have to chase a slope all the way down a hill. If there's a foot or 6-inch difference, we can usually make up that disturbance within the curb itself. The way that the synthetic turf works is the turf backing is porous. So it's a woven material, lets water go through, but does not let the infill materials go through. So the sand and the rubber stays in place, and water is able to drain vertically through it and into the stone base. There's 2 different types of stone that we use. One we call dynamic topping stone. It's a smaller material. There's very little fines in it, so it drains vertically very well, but we're able to grade it to a very nice planarity. And then below that is the kind of a larger stone. So one of the things that the fields as designed that they're able to do is accommodate, large storm events within the stone base itself. If you think about, say, like a 5-gallon bucket that's full of stone, you fill it up with water, you still have plenty of room for the water capacity to be in there. Similar type of thing with the fields and how the curve and the stone work. So able to accommodate large rainstorm events and still have safe playable fields. A couple of the fields that we've done these EPDM systems at, multiple fields at Yale. We just replaced a field over at Quinnipiac University. There was the infields over at in New Canaan at the Little League Complex. So EPDM is a very good system. It's very safe. It's very ability to stay and be used for a long period of time is all those characteristics are there. Some of the things that are alternative infills that are not great, that are a little bit misnomers, are things like organic infills. So that's still, in a manufactured product, but the organic infills, they require you to water them. They stay frozen. So like this time of year, today may have been a different story, but the fields would be frozen for a significant period of time. And then at the end of the lifespan of the field, you basically have to take the field and throw it in the dumpster. Because if you think about what happens with, say, like a pressure treated 2x4 that's laying on the ground, if you get that in your grass and then you went and picked it up after 8 years or 10 years, it's going to be mud and slop on the bottom of it. So that's kind of what happens with those organic infills and why the school didn't feel like that was a good way to go. So what happens at the end of the lifespan of these fields is the infill material would be put into a bag. The turf will be cut into strips, infill put in a bag, set aside. The turf goes to a recycling plant, new carpet puts in, and then the infill goes right back into the field. So even as soon as a couple of years ago, what may have been just going right into a dumpster or somebody saying it has a second life, now it truly does. We have our own recycling plants, and it's made into things like Trex decking and benches and recycled materials like that. But the ability to use the EPDM for many replacement cycles was also very important to the school. Here is the kind of the highlight of the site plan. This one has, again, north to left. You can see working from kind of bottom left and going clockwise around the site. We have the new infield for the softball field, the existing grass field being improved. We have the new pathway that's going down, kind of traversing through the site. We do have to take kind of a hard left instead of going steeply down the hill in order to maintain both ADA accessibility and having something that's maintainable and won't be washing out. And then as we get down to between the two fields, that's where we have that larger retaining wall, again, to be able to promote the ADA accessibility. The area between the fields will be sloped up, so there's a small portion of that wall that will be above the 4 foot. And we'll have fencing above it for fall protection. And then the 2 synthetic turf fields being built there. Again, we're not expanding on any of the areas that are currently developed, not moving any closer to the neighboring properties. Really trying to increase the playability of the fields, the usability of the fields, and the safety of the fields. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to talk a little bit about the drainage characteristics and some of the approvals so far.
Hi, Tom Nelson, professional engineer with McCord Engineering. We focus primarily on the site drainage plan and stormwater management. There's a lot of existing drainage infrastructure out on this project, as you can imagine. Most of it was constructed in this area, in the north side of the campus. Most of that was constructed in 2002 as part of the Thatcher building construction. So that gathers pretty much the entire north side of the campus and conveys it to a large underground detention system that's sitting below what I'm calling sort of the southeastern field. That on its way through the campus collects runoff from the backsides of the buildings, from parking areas, from driveways, from a bunch of others, areas that feed into it, the new pool that's back there. And also the uphill side of all the fields that we're discussing also have drainage infrastructure that feeds into this system. So all this runoff is currently all kind of connected in together and brought to that underground detention system. And for the most part, that's this whole network of drainage, and that underground detention system is working well. It overflows. There's an outlet structure that overflows to the east down to the bottom of the hill. So as has been discussed before, east of our fields, it gets quite steep. So there's, as currently today, that system overflows via a large diameter pipe down to the base of that slope where there's a deep stone basin to collect it. Beyond that, it flows through 30+ acres of woodlands and wetlands and sort of meanders its way out towards Frogtown Road. The one big issue that's been noted with that drainage system currently is where that existing pathway gets a lot steeper. We get a concentration of runoff, we get erosion. We've had issues with the drainage system getting inundated with sediment. So a big part of what Chris has already talked about is sort of reorienting the access path and what, in addition to sort of turning that path and creating a less steep pathway, also allows us to install a proper drainage collection system there. So a big part of the new drainage infrastructure that's being proposed is along this pathway to capture the runoff that's coming down that between the fields. We've added a new underground detention system specifically for that pathway that's designed to accommodate the increased runoff from this project, allow that to infiltrate into the soils, and then it will overflow back into the same drainage network that already exists there. Some of the existing drainage around the existing fields on the uphill slopes will be sort of reconfigured. We're moving away from some of the existing grates, the cast iron grates that are a little too close to the play field, replacing those with a softer, we'll say, gravel infiltration trench. Some other parts of the drainage system need to be reconfigured slightly, but in general, we're talking about the same piping, the same infrastructure, just slightly upgrading and improving the way we're capturing that runoff. The turf field itself, what the focus really was to mimic our existing drainage conditions through infiltration. So the stone below the fields is there to capture that runoff and allow that runoff to infiltrate. The fields themselves are also going to be flatter. So we're going from 2% plus slope down to 0.75%. So that's going to mean water is going to be moving slower. It's going to be moving vertically into our stone layer and captured there. So there's actually intermittent earth berms within that stone layer that's going to hold that water back. And so beneath the turf field itself sort of functions as a detention system, holding that water back during storms, allowing it to infiltrate. And the perimeter of the field is a piping to capture any large flow events, any larger storms. That will be conveyed to the existing outlet that I discussed. So that'll be conveyed to the existing drainage outlet that we already have that goes down the steep slope to the east. All the drainage systems, both the fields and the underground detention system, are sized for water quality treatment. That's the first 1.3 inches of stormwater runoff. They exceed that in all three of those systems, meaning that the initial 1.3 inches of runoff from a storm event will be captured and detained in our stormwater system and allowed to infiltrate into the soils. We've reduced peak flows from the property. We've reduced peak volumes from the property. We've captured and allowed runoff to infiltrate on almost all of our surfaces. And I think I'm comfortable saying that we don't anticipate any impact to any of the downstream drainage systems or adjoining properties from stormwater. That's it for me.
Anything further? Thank you. Questions? Mm-hmm.
Chris, on the drainage. So if you can get the map up again where the big catchment basin is, it's in the corner of the field, let me get the thing, southeast corner. not only for the fields, but also other areas in the campus tend to drain into there, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
And any maintenance that needs to happen to that will be done as part of this.
Yeah, it was recently, I think 2 summers ago, it was inspected. It was cleaned. We are relocating one of the inspection manholes so that future maintenance can easily take place. And there is one manhole that is going to be below the field surface. It's something that Chris and I have discussed to make sure that it is properly located and accessible for long-term maintenance of that system.
Below field, sir, what does that mean exactly?
It's below the artificial turf. So unfortunately, there will be one manhole that does require, for access and maintenance, the turf would have to be a square gets cut off and then repaired when it needs to be maintained.
Okay. If I understood you correctly, sir, that in your opinion as a professional engineer, the runoff numbers and management of that is going to be better post this development than it is now.
Yes.
If you could just again bullet point 2 or 3 reasons why that's the case to keep it simple for me, I'd be grateful.
Sure. The largest reason, so we're adding a new underground detention system for the pathway. That's one way we're increasing.
Can you point out where that is, could be again?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So that detention system on its own is sort of offsetting. We do have a slight increase in impervious runoff from the pathway system. The main bulk of what we're adding is the stone layer below this existing turf field that is now going to be acting as a detention system. That's the primary reason why we have a reduction in the peak flows and the peak volumes.
Currently, the field's drained from west to east.
Right.
A lot of that just runs off, gets right into the wetland that are at the base of the hill. Some of it is, obviously captured by the existing conditions, but the new system with the water going vertically through it has the ability to infiltrate into the subsoils instead, because the pitch of the field goes from 2% or so down to about 0.5 or 0.75%. So it has the ability to infiltrate underneath the field as rather than just running off from the grass slope.
One other question, Arian, stop me if I'm barking up the wrong tree on this one, but I guess it's been years since somebody already sort of dug up this area. So you're agreeing with that? Again, Ponus Ridge was a Native American trail. There's a burial site right near you. And I'm just wondering, have you ever found any artifacts on the property, including near this area? Because that falls under a whole different set of things. So help me out.
We have not. We have artifacts from the area that were discovered by Mr. Thurton, the farmer who owned the farm long before Grace Episcopal Church took over the site. But to my knowledge, there's been nothing found at any point in any of the construction that the school has undertaken, nor, to my understanding, the church prior to the school.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
On the north side, in terms of the fencing, are you keeping the existing fence? Are you changing out that fence? What's that going to look like?
So there's one existing fence that's going to be maintained and stay there. The new fencing will be added interior to that. I think the closest one for the upper field here is about 45 or so feet from the property line. As we move further down, it's a little over 50 feet. And the one thing that is located on this baseball field here, the most upper field, there's a chain link backstop that's in disrepair. So we'll be replacing the mesh on that to upgrade that and make that safer for the time being. But the poles and foundations will stay.
So the fences, I guess, north of that are they chain link? You're just keeping chain link, or are you putting some sort of mesh over it or screening?
It's the one that's there between the neighbor property.
There's two. There's one that's like a Trex or
a
vinyl fence.
Okay.
It's a vinyl fence, and then behind it there is a 6-foot chain link fence.
Okay.
That through discussions with a neighbor about her sight lines to where lacrosse field was added 3-4 years ago.
Okay, and those are staying.
Unless
Right. Okay. And there are no trees you're taking down or anything there. I'm just looking at like Google Maps and I see.
Just the ones between the fields.
Okay, but nothing on the property
And then,
line.
Thought is put those back after, put something back in after. Currently, the pine needles are also not great for turf.
Mhm.
So we'll be putting back something that creates less pine needles, but is also a year-round sort of screening.
What sort of, is Commissioner Chris again, what sort of plant material are you planning on?
I'd have to
Join.
double check with our grounds guy. He gave me a couple of options of different sort of evergreen trees that just don't have pine needles, so that they're less of a nuisance for the turf fields.
These would be coniferous trees, not deciduous trees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dan Radman here. No lighting on the fields, right?
No.
The ball netting that you were describing on the eastern edge, will that be mounted to poles on the retaining wall, or I'm just wondering the cross-sectional relationship of the fencing, the netting, the retaining wall in the field, and the drop-off?
Yep. So I think it's best shown probably here on the right side of this picture. So the concrete turf anchor curb that goes around the field. So the turf field on this picture would be on the left side. You can see one of the fence posts here. So that would be the same situation with the ball safety netting. The netting itself sits into a sleeve that's in the curb. So it's integral to the concrete curb. And the netting system could be lowered down, stored, the poles can be taken out, but the fencing would stay on the perimeter of the fields. So the netting goes in and out.
Is that the plan, to take it in and out?
It improves the longevity of it.
I was going to say, is there a need?
What's that?
Is there a need to take it in and out, or?
There's not necessarily a need to. The netting itself should last 5 to 10 years before there, potentially needs to be replaced. You get much closer to the 10 years if you take it out up and down during the winter. But it doesn't have to.
Gotcha. The rubber itself, as you know, we went through a pretty extensive application with St. Luke's, their field. The rubber, you mentioned it's EPDM, that's virgin rubber?
Yep.
So is there any concern for contaminants and PFAS, getting, draining down the hill? Because right now, as I see it, the drainage, your existing drainage is going to the containment galleries that are on that south east corner. The new drainage that's going to be coming off of the turf fields, even though you're getting some vertical penetration there, they still slope to the eastern edge, and there's some linear drain or something happening there, right? That's all going, it looks like none of that is going to the containment galleries, but it's rather going eastbound to a catch basin and then just discharging into the woods and the wetlands beyond. Is that correct?
So it would be discharging to the existing settling basin that's there. But one thing that I probably should have mentioned, but starting from 2026 on, all of the field turf, synthetic turf materials will be PFAS free. So the materials that we will be putting onto this field will be PFAS free material.
Because all of that water, even though it's going into however many acres of, country school property, eventually makes its way down to the Roten River watershed. The ponds and the stream and everything, the river's there.
So we did an interesting study pretty recently through a field that we did at Quinnipiac University. Maybe it was their baseball field. I think it was 2 years ago. So as part of the wetlands approval process for the town of Hamden, they had to do PFAS testing both upstream at the site and downstream. And the testing that they found that they did upstream actually had more PFAS in it than what they found at the site and below the site. So through that, they came to the conclusion that the turf field is not adding any PFAS to the drainage system or to the outlets. It's actually decreasing the amount of PFAS in the overall watershed. So we do feel very strongly that this is not going to have any impact to the wetland area as far as PFAS or drainage or any of those environmental concerns.
And knowing your proximity to the watershed and the Norotan River, it's about a quarter mile down the road, whatever it is. I'm assuming there was no regulatory review required by Aquarian or anyone that has oversight over the watershed?
No additional, no, only the Inland Wetlands Agency has reviewed it from us.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Are you keeping the sledding hill?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Anyone else, commissioners?
I have a question. Are there any other chemicals that can leach off this rubber that could be unpleasant?
So all the materials have been tested for heavy metals, things like zinc and iron and all those kinds of things. And they all pass all of the testing threshold for water quality. And we're happy to include that as part of the materials for you guys.
Okay.
But we run into this all the time, and that's why we test the materials very thoroughly. That's why we're very particular about the stone base that goes beneath it. It's a basalt material. Some of the times that we're seeing issues with runoff from fields, it's usually a field that uses something that's more like a shale or something that's not quite as hard of a stone. So you get more of the water going through the turf and basically pulling those iron and zinc type materials out from the stone base. So that's why we're pretty particular about the stone base that goes in beneath the field. But yeah, all of our materials pass all of the testing thresholds for that. We could give you the testing thresholds for flammability and any of those kinds of things. But yeah, these are our highest quality products.
How well does the rubber stay where you put it, as opposed to it's really wet and it may sort of get washed away or starts infiltrating into the ground?
Yep. So the rubber and the sand that's in the actual material basically doesn't move. There's a small amount of migration that gets on people's shoes or things like that, but a very, very small amount. We're pretty particular about how the concrete turf anchor curb is. So on the right side here, you can see that there's a lip that's on there's like a shelf there. So that shelf is set so that it is at the level of the infill, so that it makes the infill stay in place, but also isn't necessarily like a tripping or falling hazard for players. So in general, it doesn't move around. If there is a large rainstorm event, everything's going to drain basically vertically. There's not a large contributing watershed offsite from these fields.
Okay.
If that was the case, there'd be more of a concern. But they're basically confined to their own sort of watershed.
You're aware there's a 35-foot setback?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that we had looked at doing the concrete pads for dugouts, and are now going to be removing that from the plans. So we don't want to have something like that falling within the setback.
Final question. Since the fields will be more usable, I assume not only you would use them, but also some of the charities you support would be using them more frequently than they have been in the past because they're more usable. Would you also be renting it out to people? And what are your plans?
We don't have plans to increase, to sort of change the usage that we currently have had. So obviously, some of the groups that use it, I guess, would be able to use it more often because it would not be underwater and canceled on a certain day. But we don't have we don't have the plan to increase outside groups' usage of it, or frankly, our own usage of it.
So you wouldn't see this as a asset to be rented out to anyone?
Not more. We currently rent some of our facilities and some of our fields as it is, and but not any more than we currently do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the material again. So, I mean, I hear that it's like virgin rubber and hypothetically that's better and best. But there's still, based on my preliminary Google searches, there's still like some runoff. And you mentioned some like post-construction testing at the other sites that you guys have done. Are there plans here? Hypothetically, the bases catch everything, but can you test like around the site to just ensure like over the next 5-10 years to make sure that you're not seeing any chemicals run outside of the system?
So wetlands didn't feel like that was a necessary thing. However, there is a separate manhole that we would be tying into that if the need did arise or we felt strongly that that was something that had to be done, we could test the water coming specifically from the fields.
I had a question. With the increased field usage also, in my opinion, increases the level of play as well, having raised 3 athletes and having had multiple of my own athletes removed by ambulance from multiple fields. I would like you to walk me through the exit path for an emergency vehicle, especially in the northeastern field.
So yeah, probably the best way to describe it is right now it's pretty difficult to get from field to field. And especially that further field, you basically have to go over the grass and you really don't have a great way to get there. What we'll be doing is creating basically a loop pattern that'll go from the existing pathway that comes into the site through Frogtown and then goes around the backside of the athletics building. And then we'll loop back up to get back to the main section of campus. As we improve that, that will also take us through a little ramp and we basically go uphill, and that's where that retaining wall is. And then we have a turnaround area there. There's no fence at that spot, so once you kind of get to that point, you can drive the ambulance or whatever golf cart right onto the field and have suitable access to the field itself.
Even the far field, because typically, and again, in my situation, the ambulance would be called for a head injury. And so just in that you could get an ambulance to that very far field.
Yep. While we don't promote people driving on the field, it is accessible for an ambulance to get out there.
Okay, thank you.
How?
There's no fence on the western slope here.
They drive on the
So
field.
they would just drive, it's flat from the access path right over the curb into the field.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one quick question? This is Steve Finn.
Sure.
Chris, I'm sorry. I think I heard you say that this project will improve the emergency access to the fields. Did I hear that over existing? Is that what I heard?
Yes. Currently, there's a mismatch of gravel, and not all the fields have pathways that go to them.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I thought that's what you said, but I had a little difficulty here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Finn running interference here. So back to my question, how? Because I can see the new pathway that is behind the athletics building on the east side of the athletics building, coming from their drive area where theoretically that's where the ambulance would pull in to try and gain access.
Yes.
That pathway, how?
That one we have, I think, as
probably 6 or 8 feet, or
I think it's 10 or 12.
Oh, it is
10 feet.
10 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. But to Miss Commissioner Nielsen's point, that pathway is not designed in such a way that a vehicle could go in, make a turnaround, and get back out. So would it be, golf cart running the gauntlet there?
I mean, under typical situations, it would be a golf cart.
Right.
If the emergency vehicle, whether not really a fire truck, but ambulance could drive up, do a loop on the field.
Ah, good point. As necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had a point of clarity on one of the asks for the special permit was a retaining wall higher than 5 feet. I was trying to understand where the retaining wall exceeded 4 feet, because it seemed that you had different exceeding places. Can you just highlight where that would be?
So I think the main one is this one between the fields. As you can see, the slope starts to go up from the field elevation being around 334. As we get this darker area here being the retaining wall, we get to 336, 338, 340, and the highest point on the field is 334.8, I believe. So that's when we start to get over that 5 foot and just kind of that corner between the two fields. The 334 over here to the 342, that will slope up and be a synthetic turf material as well. So they won't have to try to go and cut grass between the fields on a slope. But that's, I think, a 3-to-1 slope going up between the two of them. So it's really just this kind of location here.
Okay, so that's the only location that goes over the 4 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's in that sloped area between the two fields that you're proposing reinstating some of the trees?
Yes.
The trees would be planted amongst the fake turf, though?
No, the other fields.
Just shown here with some of the circles to try to enhance the the pathway itself.
Oh, I see. When you say between, you're thinking of the upper field and the lower fields, not between paired fields.
You got it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm looking at between the pair of fields. I guess those are the trees you're taking out. There's circles in there.
Yep, there's kind of the faint circles here.
Yeah.
Those are the pine trees that are existing that will be taken out.
So will there be any in that sloping area between the two fields? Will there be any plantings there?
No.
Just grass.
Just the synthetic turf.
Well, there will be synthetic turf there.
So there won't be like a fence or like, I'm just thinking of coming down
the slope,
coming down and then running right to the end of the field and then dropping off
yeah.
breaking an ankle.
There's the fence.
Never mind.
So, it'll be that's the ball safety netting between them. So that would be the basically the buffer for not falling down. And then if you run past and you run up the hill, that's okay.
Commissioners, anything further?
You mentioned field hockey, and are both turfs going to be long turf, or is one going to be a water turf for field hockey?
Both are planned to be infield synthetic turf. So it gives them maximum amount of usage for all of the sports,
right?
While being able to accommodate field hockey.
Okay, so it won't be a water turf.
Field hockey specific with a watering system.
Okay, gotcha.
And Commissioner, just to confirm, the 3 fields you're looking to renovate, there will be no lighting. No as in no lighting.
No lighting.
Okay.
Steve didn't want me to mention so we do have 2 scoreboards proposed.
Yeah, where do they go and what do they look like?
Yep. So those will be between the 2 fields, the 2 synthetic turf fields.
Okay.
They are kind of kitty cornered so that you can see like they're in the same location, but they face outwards. So you're kind of facing towards the center of the field. Each board is 4'6" and 16 feet wide. It would have like a naming panel on the top and then probably like a decorative truss kind of thing on the top of that.
What would they look like? Do you have a picture of them?
One of the neighbors also expressed concern about noise and buzzers and such. Could you just speak to the, billboards, or sorry, the scoreboards and the noise? And I think I heard in the preamble that it's going to be day games, and so.
Yep. So there might be like a horn to signal the end of the game, but there's no audio system that's being proposed. There's no lighting on these. They are LEDs, but they don't push lighting out. They're just set up to be able to allow the visibility during the day games. But the biggest thing I think that we're considering doing is a horn to basically end the game. Is that what you guys kind of do now, or do you do something like handheld?
I think it's primarily whistles and things like that. Currently we have like these trailer scoreboards that we bring out.
Okay.
And I think they do have a horn on them, but
typically it's the referee's whistle.
Yeah, typically it's the referee's whistle.
Yeah. Got it.
Can I make one last point on the one thing that's happened? I have a couple of kids also who play a lot of turf sports, and field hockey being one of them. And during the summer, it can get quite hot out on the turf. And I'm just interested in, I understand the concern about the needles and that contaminating the fields. But I think when you have the south and western exposures, it might be strategic to plant some trees that potentially shade some portion of the turf so it can be usable and reduce the heat islands. And I was it would be ideal, honestly, to put trees between the two. And I understand that you may be constrained by your setbacks on either end, but you can see just by one of your renderings there that the tall trees are creating those long shadows over the turf field, which, because it's from the south, I'd imagine that would be desirable. So I was just curious, has that been part of your thought process?
So there are several trees on the south side here. Basically the furthest southern portion of the synthetic turf fields. There's probably 4 or 5 that we're going to be able to maintain. Then there's a little bit of a fill slope in the very corner. And then there's probably, I think there's 4 trees that we'll take down and put basically 4 new trees back. So for that southern exposure, we will have, you know, a vegetated buffer to be able to help create more shadow. As we get to the western side of the field, there are many existing kind of large trees that would also benefit the shading. And then as we come from the east side, there's a large vegetated area.
The east side isn't as important.
Yeah.
So it's more about the western and the south.
But doesn't your plan show those larger trees on the western side between the turf and the grass field coming down? Site plan hasn't dotted.
I think you have the benefit of the high brow above the 2 fields on the western flank. So you're going to get protection of the late sun just by virtue of that higher perch. But I think the southern.
So this is the demo plan here. So there's a couple of the trees that are on that slope between the grass field and the synthetic turf field. 5 that will be coming out. And then the ones that are between the 2 fields will come out. And then the 3 in the kind of the southernmost corner.
But the trees that currently exist between the left turf field and the grass field below it, that 60 or 80 foot buffer that's there, whatever that is, the trees that are in that zone, those are to remain?
Yes.
Okay. All right, commissioners, anything further?
Nope.
All right. Good from your side?
I think so. Okay. Steve, anything else?
The only thing I would add is that, I mean, the New Canaan Country School obviously cares very, very much about its students. And to the extent that heat becomes an issue, I have every reason to believe that they would do what's necessary to protect their student athletes, even to the extent of stopping play or whatever. And so, look, I think it's great that the commission fully vets these applications, and I think you're doing a great job. But I also think that, you know, these are professionals who are working with these students every day, care about them deeply, and have obligations to them. So to the extent that you still have any concerns about, you know, heat exhaustion or whatever, I would ask you to think about the fact that these are not a bunch of kids running, you know, practices. These are adults and have deep concerns for the students. That's my only point. Thank you.
So you're committing to misting stations?
I'll be out there with my spray bottle.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Finn.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't.
Public comment on this one, correct? So we'll open this up to the public. If there's anyone that, Mr. Green.
Would you like me to leave the presentation kind of up or take that down and bring it up later?
Could you put the aerial up? The aerial that was like the 3D, couple more pages, one more. Leave that up. Hello, Mr. Green.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Stacy and Stephen Metler, who are here this evening, William Mountford, who's here this evening, Kevin Seth, Karen Sneerson, Wenji Fan, and Lulu Lee. Each of these people own properties that abut the school property. And I can tell you that all of them support the mission of the school. We are not here to necessarily oppose or overturn this application at all. We are here to learn about the application. And I just have to comment that I know my clients and I really appreciate the thoughtful questioning by the commission on this application. And you asked many of the same questions that we might have asked and address the concerns of my clients. I've got to say, certainly the school has been here for a long time, and we understand that. And all of my clients obviously bought this property knowing that it abutted the school, and there is a certain base level of activity that comes when you live next to a school property, and they really accept that. The school has been a known neighbor. The school has been a good neighbor, and we hope the school would agree that we've been good neighbors as well. And we're looking forward to continuing that. We do obviously have certain concerns, and the commission sort of got right to it. And I think, well, let me take a moment and just editorialize on my own. I hear about the composition of the field. We obviously spent a lot of time together on St. Luke's. I personally, I am not an expert, although I felt like by the end of that application, I'd learned more than I ever wanted to know about turf fields. With all due respect, I continue to be a little bit skeptical and a little bit uneasy with turf fields, even with EPDM. One question, and I'll leave this to the commission, is whether there's some sort of a disinfectant process involving the field. I don't think that was addressed, and I don't know if that's still happening, but that's something I became aware of in the course of the St. Luke's application. And I've done quite a bit of reading on turf fields, and I understand that there has been an evolution, but again, personally, I am not an expert, but personally, I am a little bit skeptical and a little bit troubled by it. But having said that, I think the primary concern of my clients is we have been good neighbors, the school has been good neighbors. We want to keep that relationship. But the obvious concern, and one that the commission raised, is the concept of sort of intensification of the use. Now, the school has said that generally the use and intensity of the school property will not change by virtue of the field, but I think it becomes a more attractive option when your fields are available 20% more of the time using the school's own metric. And also when you have fields that are sort of state of the art, then obviously the property becomes more attractive to I guess, more attractive to more intense and more increased usage. I'm not sure, and there really is not a baseline as to what the current usage of the school is and who exactly uses the school. My clients are aware that there are, for example, outside organizations that rent the school property or use the field for certain leagues and certain programs. I'm not sure, there's no baseline for this commission to really understand what that level of activity is. And sort of, I guess the start and the finish of this is that under your regulations, in ruling on a special permit, considerations include impact on neighboring property values and sort of promoting better neighborhood compatibility. So there were, just to sort of get to the categories that we might talk about in terms of this commission imposing appropriate terms and conditions as you can under your zoning regulations. Obviously, we're sort of concerned with hours of operation for the field, and it was established that there is going to be no lighting of any kind on the field. That is an important specific condition for the commission to include in your decision on this. And I'm always struck when there's a field at Fairfield University that I drive by every day that did have a restriction of no lighting, and now they have these boxes that sit on the ground that are apparently temporary lighting, where the lighting literally telescopes. I haven't seen these in actual operation, but I see them on the rugby field at Fairfield U now. So I think it's important so that there's no misinterpretation in the future and no misunderstanding that there's no lighting that's either permanent or temporary of any kind on the use of the fields. We are obviously concerned with noise, and certainly we have gotten used to the notion during soccer season and during some summer programs that there are whistles associated with play, and we're all used to that. And talking to my clients tonight, all of their kids have played various sports, so we sort of understand the base level and we accept that. But I would urge the commission to not allow any amplified sound of any kind, as in PA systems, loudspeakers, amplified noise. This is something, it's become sort of a popular with some of the high schools I know, where they play music during the warm-up for the game. And obviously, depending on the level of usage of this field, that would be something of concern to my clients, so that they don't have to listen to music and that kind of thing at various times of the day when they're trying to use and enjoy their properties. I would urge the commission to not permit this buzzer system for the ends of games, because there are days where there are a series of games going on, and having to listen to buzzers for the end of the period or the end of, the end of the half or the end of the game constantly throughout the day would be pretty disruptive to anyone living next to a field. Hours of operation. So with no lighting, I would, and ideally, I was just retained on this in the last 3 days on this application, and I've read the application thoroughly, but unfortunately, I reached out to Attorney Finn today. We didn't have a chance to really have a quantitative discussion on some of these items, but I would love to. I think my neighbors would love to work with the school on, or I suppose the commission can impose something on sort of a curfew on hours of operation for the field. And I would suggest, and I don't even know if this would be a burden if 6 p.m. were set as a sort of end of the day for the field, so that in the evening, my clients can quietly use and enjoy their properties, which again, sort of back right up to the school property. Days of operation, I'm not sure, not knowing the, again, the baseline, I'm not sure, and the applicant didn't really describe what the days of operation are proposed for the field. Now, obviously, on the weekends, the school is not in session. We are aware that there are outside organizations that operate leagues and clinics on the property. And obviously, once again, with the ability to use the field more intensely, my clients are concerned with that. I'm not sure how that works with renting school property for a tax exempt organization. And I think that's a little bit of an issue that, well, not for this commission, but something to be, I guess, dealt with by the school. But we're wondering if there's some sort of guardrail that might be imposed by the commission, again, in terms of the days of operation. And I don't know how to get to, again, this intensity or allowing outside organizations to use the school property. Testing for impacts, and I note that did not appear to be a condition of the inland wetland permit, which I read today. So there's not a periodic testing protocol. I note that one of the commissioners this evening raised that as something that the commission might consider some sort of not frequently, but just occasionally, an occasional testing of the groundwater. And I note that there was some sort of port available to do that. So what we're looking for, again, is days, some sort of limitations imposed as conditions on days and hours of operation, and something that the commission thinks is fair and reasonable for the weekends in terms of days and hours of operation, and some sort of a cutoff on weekdays, and an absolute lighting restriction for temporary and permanent lighting. Obviously whistles, and I suppose we can't control if someone's out there with a hand horn, and that happens sometimes with some games, and I recognize that, but no sort of electronic buzzer systems, no electronic or amplified sound systems of any kind in using the field. And I think that generally covers it. I'm not sure whether the commission would prefer that we work directly with the applicant to come up with a suggestion for the commission, or whether this is something that the commission would prefer to do on your own. I mean, I'm happy to work with Attorney Finn on seeing if we can stipulate and agree on those conditions, or whether the commission prefers to, fashion those remedies on your own. I mean, and I don't know what the school's willingness is to sort of engage in a dialogue with my clients informally to see if we can reach an understanding. I know it's already 10:08, and
yeah. So let me just touch on a couple of things that you mentioned that I believe the applicant has already addressed, which is there would be no amplified speaker systems, correct? There would be no additional lighting, correct? And as far as operation, days and hours of operation, we did not get into specifying days and specific hours, but the statement that I heard was that there would be no change to the current schedules or amount of play on the fields beyond what they already do. Is that not satisfactory? Or
I think it is, and I'm sure the school maintains some kind of.
I'm sorry, is that correct? Am I stating that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Presumably the school must maintain a log of what they're running for programming, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
So maybe that's something the school could share as maintaining this baseline, because otherwise we don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it's Steve Finn. I'd like to be heard at an appropriate time.
Sure, Mr. Finn, jump right in.
Yeah, I think we're going down a path that's not proper. I mean, New Canaan Country School could increase the usage of its existing fields without requiring permission from the neighbors, negotiating with the neighbors, or frankly, asking for permission from the commission. And the idea that we're not going to be allowed to have whistles or electronic buzzers, they can use electronic buzzers now. And look, a schedule is games get rained out. I haven't had a chance to talk to Mr. Cooper about it, but I assume that sometimes gym may get canceled or games may get canceled. They have to be rescheduled, and therefore the hours have to be somewhat flexible. Noise, these fields have been there for 40 plus years. And as Mr. Green acknowledged, all these neighbors moved into this their existing homes after the school was already there. And so to try to handcuff the operation of a school or the use of its fields in this matter, with all respect, I don't think there's any authority under the zoning regulations or the state statutes to do that for a special use that is grandfathered and allowed in the zone. Let's face it, athletic fields are part of every single school. And the use of those athletic fields generally are flexible and up to the school to regulate. We stand by our willingness to not increase the usage, to not have lights on the field, to limit the amplification to either buzzers or a megaphone on occasion. But anything else beyond that is an overreach, in my opinion, and is not appropriate in the context of this application. So I haven't had an opportunity to talk to my client. My client does, and as Mr. Green acknowledged, always wants to be a good neighbor and be sensitive. But I really would counsel them not to agree to a lot of these things that they have, that many of these things that Mr. Green has requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finn. You're kind of going down the same road I was going, which is that the applicant during the presentation already acknowledged let's call it compliance with those criteria. The fact that there's no lighting on the field, they're going to be limited to daylight hours for any play on the field. I don't know if there's weekend activity on the fields currently or not. There might be. So that if that's currently happening, we already have representation that that's the schedule that's going to be maintained, and same level of play will continue. I think the only new item, and this is not necessarily Mr. Green's, but I brought it up earlier, a couple of the commissioners brought it up, is just the concern, with the history on St. Luke's and now another turf field going in with the high school, all the turf they've put in, there is a legitimate concern over contaminants. But I think the recommendation by the applicants of doing periodic, it could be annual, periodic test of the handhold of the discharge area from the fields, just to see what's coming out. It's something that we put on as a condition at St. Luke's. I don't think it's unreasonable to do that once a year, just to make sure that what's coming out of the fields is acceptable and within all guidelines. That's the only thing I would recommend.
Mr. Chairman, just maybe to close the loop on this, maybe the applicant can describe what their usage is on the weekend so that it's in the record. I mean, just describe it and, sort of days and hours the school's fields are used on the weekend, and also, and I guess by whom it's used in inside or outside operations. And then, also I presume then that the fields would not be used at night at all.
There's no lighting, so yeah.
So can we
hide and go seek maybe, but
yeah, can we? That's all right. Can we get just some sort of?
It's up to you. What I recommend, if you want to discuss that now, that's fine. Or you can come back and submit it as part of record to the planner and say, here's our typical, spring schedule. Here's our typical fall schedule by day of week.
I think that makes more sense to submit it to the planner. I don't have.
I didn't expect you to. Yeah. Yeah. And we wouldn't want to misrepresent what the usage is. I would rather the applicant go back and confirm and submit it for record.
That's fine. That's okay. That's what we were asking for. That's fine. Mr. Metler would like an opportunity to just briefly,
of course,
in the context of our presentation.
No, I just want to make a quick comment. So again, the country school has been a great neighbor. I think we've been good neighbors to the country school. We run the property that butts. We might have one of the largest shared lines with the country school. I know that in the past, the country school had made an agreement with the neighbors, and this is one of the reasons we bought the property, that they would notify the neighbors if there's any outside usage of the fields. None of the neighbors have any issue with country school usage of their own facilities. Zero. This isn't about country school usage. This is becoming increasingly a commercial operation. They built the basketball court, club basketball moves in. There's club soccer now and soccer. The reason that the fields are no longer green is because they have so many outside groups coming in to use the fields. This has only been over the last 2 years, and it's destroyed the grass. And so our understanding is that the turf fields are being installed to bring in club lacrosse. It's not New Canaan Country School lacrosse. So our concern is outside groups. It's the trajectory is a little scary. And we've invested a lot of money in this property, and we're very concerned about our property values. And I'm very concerned about the turf fields, but I don't think that's going to fly with anybody, and I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to go there. Okay. But I think it's a legitimate concern of all this. And by the way, some of the neighbors are actually afraid to be here. They don't want to upset the country school. Okay. But I think it's a legitimate concern that the traffic on the country school property, the trajectory is it's going up quite a lot. One of my neighbors mentioned that the parking situation, for instance, country school during non-school hours, it's pretty amazing. Overflow of cars and just number of cars parked there. And you can drive down Frogtown and see how many cars are there between, the Winter Club and the country school at night sometimes. So our concern is really the trajectory this is taking. We have zero issue with current usage. Even with the outside usage right now, if it were to stay here, fine. Obviously, my problem is I don't necessarily believe the statement that the intent is to stay here. That's the issue. That's why we'd like to know what's happening right now, because in the past, agreements have been made that don't seem to be honored anymore. We have no recourse. What's our recourse? All of a sudden, just more and more kids and parents come onto the fields. What are we going to do? This is our only chance right here. So, and I don't really know if it's appropriate even to ask you guys to step in and do this. But it's and by the way, we didn't have much warning on this. Obviously, we had him, got him 3 days ago. I know we got a letter in December. I guess, we had family things going on. So did not attend the December meeting. My father died in October, couldn't make it. I was in Atlanta dealing with my family. And thank God we had the snowstorm last week. We went and had Joel. And you had to listen to me the whole time. So anyway, I guess that's my big concern is commercialization of the property, usage by outside groups. And I'm very concerned about synthetic fields, but I don't think anybody's going to listen to me about that. And just the amount of traffic on the property that's outside. It's not country. None of this is about country school usage of their own facilities. And again, I think the synthetic fields are going in to enable more club sports usage.
If I may, I think we have a very agreeable applicant here who's willing to work with you guys and has in the past. Would it be acceptable as we just discussed, for them to establish, let's call it a baseline of activity, submit that for record, and then at least you have something documented that what you can expect moving forward and what you can look for, that you'd be able to know whether there's an intensification above and beyond what they've represented. Absolutely. So if we can do that, I think that would help. We walk a very fine line. It's a special permit and, institutional use in a residential zone. So we're very sensitive to this impact on the neighbors as well as intensification of use. But there's always a balance that we're trying to maintain. And I think we're just, with this application, I think we have two agreeable parties to just find a happy medium that we can move forward with.
All right, thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
So once again, the commission can impose reasonable conditions, and commission is the finder of fact on this. So the commission can impose the conditions that it thinks are reasonable here. And Attorney Finn has repeatedly mentioned a couple of times that the school's been in that area, in that place since the 30s, since before zoning was adopted. So there's no question that the school use is grandfathered in on the site, and I'm not questioning that. But again, the school is here because it has to be for a special permit, and that triggers the review and oversight by this commission, including promoting better neighborhood compatibility. And as always, you've been really patient. I appreciate it. I don't know if you have any other questions for me, for my clients.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, one last point, if I may.
I think
I don't disagree that the commission has every right to put conditions on this application, but those conditions have to be tied to the regulations that we're seeking a special permit under. So they have to be tied to the excavation, fill, and soil disturbance, and the height of the wall. But as your chairman has indicated, I think we're where we need to be in terms of addressing everyone's concerns. But I don't think it's appropriate for Mr. Green to tell you that you can place whatever conditions you want on this application, which is sort of the import of what he was saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
And well, all right.
I think we're good.
We're good.
Thank you. I think we have another person in the audience. Thank you. Yes, please, up to the podium. state your name and relationship to the property.
My name is Bob Felder. I've been a resident, my whole family, 50 years in New Canaan. I live on Bennington Place. The back of my property abuts Wing Road, which is right opposite the Metlers. This is probably the most excitement I've had in 50 years in the neighborhood. The first one in 50 years was the cell tower that was being proposed at the West School, where both my kids have attended. In August, probably too much information, I had a hip replacement operation and it went well. I took a walk today and I figured, let me walk the property at the country school. A lot of our friends have sent their kids to the country school. My kids have all gone to the New Canaan public schools and they're great, no disrespect. One thing I can confirm is it's a really wet piece of property. One thing that wasn't mentioned today or addressed, there was a lot of talk about the drainage going east, but nothing about it going north toward the Metlers. And today, I mean, it's a pretty scruffy area, the northern part of that property. And it wasn't portrayed, or it isn't like it was portrayed in the aerial photos, the initial photographs. And one of my observations is the photographs that are depicted as not as real should really be disclosed. It looked like it was beautifully landscaped, and it's not. It's pretty scruffy, and it's almost pond-like at this point. Because what about the drainage going north? And will the engineering or the construction deal with the northern drainage issues? So that was one of my comments. The second one was really more an observation that having seen the property today and having seen the pictures, the initial pictures that were shown, it wasn't an accurate portrayal of the property as it exists today. And where you didn't see the Metler property, if I can recall properly or accurately. And once again, it was beautifully landscaped with trees, and it's not. So just an observation that I think where the photographs are going to be presented is accurate. I think it should be disclosed that this is maybe a little photoshopped or something of that sort, just for accuracy. That's it.
Great. Thank you. No, you're done. You're done. It is 10:30. If you repeat anything, I'm gonna come after you.
School hasn't been using buzzers. They've been using whistles. They don't need buzzers now. Let's keep it the same.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Anything further from your side? No.
You want me to clarify on the drainage that
For the north side?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So yeah, I'm certainly familiar with the area he's referring to. Our fields that we're renovating, they do all drain to the east. There is a portion of Wing Road that drains down slope. We have a part of our property that juts out to the north. We are very familiar with it because half the school's septic system is over there now. There is runoff that drains from uphill down into that area. It is it's rough over there, but it is really not at all a part of this application. It is a separate drainage watershed from what we are discussing tonight.
Will the new work that you're proposing make it worse, make it better, or keep it the same?
It will keep it the same. There's really no interaction between that area and what we're working on. And I think the reason why it's looking today or this last couple of days, as you all know, with the snow melt and just sort of the time of the year we're in, things are kind of at their worst right now. It's certainly an area that we have looked at in the past. We don't feel like the drainage over there is an impact to the septic system over there, but it is a spot. There is a spot in the corner of that property there that just has historically gotten kind of wet this time of year.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, we'll close this application and discuss.
Do you want to do that?
Or leave it open.
Is there a schedule? Sorry.
Oh, that's right. They have. Well, can we make that a condition of the approval?
So, I mean, I guess the question is, what do we do with that information once, let's say they tell me, okay, X, Y, and Z days, we have this many people, and that's documented. What do we do with that after that? What if a year from now they want to increase usage?
I mean, we don't want construction until the summer. We don't have to make it.
No, but it's less about what do we do with the information. It's what the neighbors are looking for in terms of understanding what to expect.
So I don't recommend voting tonight. We have a couple administrative items that I need to talk to the commission about that involve previous approvals and previous special conditions. And I think talking through those matters may make you think a little bit more about how you want to put conditions on this application. But it's really up to you if you want to close the record so no more information can be put in before you vote on potentially the 31st, or do you want to keep the application open so more information can be submitted to the record?
Well, could you keep it open to get the schedule?
Yeah.
And then
that's the question. Do you want
let's keep it open to get the schedule, and then everybody sees it, and then that's your condition.
Let's keep it open, and then we'll do that.
Yeah.
To the 31st?
Yes. Is that okay with you?
Look, I would prefer, obviously, if we could close the hearing tonight. I think, as I understand, the chairman's suggestion, we're going to provide a baseline of the activities that are ongoing at the school now, and that's going to be part of the record. And we are representing that baseline is not going to increase. To Sarah's point, I think a condition of an approval can always be amended. I don't foresee us coming back and asking to increase that schedule, but can't predict the future. And so that is an option that we could come back and ask to amend the condition. But I don't think it's appropriate to sort of start to bat around this list and spend time, dissecting it. I think it is what it is. And I would recommend, just for efficiency's sake, that you close the hearing and we'll get the list to you before the next hearing.
So, I mean, we can't have you submitting any new information to the commission if it's closed, but they haven't voted yet. So it's either you keep it open so the list can be submitted for the commission's review, or you close it and the commission votes without having that information.
I'm sorry, I thought the proposal was that as a condition of approval, we submit that list.
That was one option. I think we're up to 3 options at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I mean, my sense is that the school and the neighbors are approaching this with an open mind and goodwill, and some time to chat would be time well spent to, let's say, avoid the potential development of ill will. I'll say. I think it's going to work out well, is my own sense of things, but there's time needed in order to do that. As far as this list, particularly given some of the comments from the neighbors and Mr. Green, that the list would also break down what is a school event, what is maybe an outside event by some charity you support, and maybe the third would be a rental, where it's more of a monetary issue that was mentioned by some of the neighbors, and so they can better understand the context of these events, which is just put them in 3 buckets, which I assume is relatively easy, I'm guessing. And we solve this or rule on this, or close it and decide, I think, relatively quickly at the end of the month.
I think so too. I think it's
be pretty straightforward.
I think
my
it's
hope.
Pretty straightforward. We're not looking to impose some incredible conditions on you, contrary to what Mr. Finn thinks. We're just looking to cross our T's and dot our I's, get this into the record. We can review it at the 31st meeting, and then the abutting neighbors can have the ability to see that and comment on it, because we'll keep the meeting open. I would assume they're going to look at it, and provided that it's the same schedule and regularity of play that's currently going on, I can't imagine there would be much opposition to that. And then we can just vote on it and move forward. If that works.
Just speaking for the applicant, I think that's fine. We'll get you the list. I'm not sure if it's gonna change anything, but at least you can have a discussion about it. And I guess we'll see you on the 31st.
31st. Yep. Great. And then just to come back to my point on the testing, are you guys acceptable to doing an annual water test on the discharge of the turf fields?
I think just.
Yeah, there is a DEP permit that is coming out that's going to impact this property starting in 2027. If we have, I'm curious to take a look at that permit and see if that's going to include relevant testing anyway, that they will already be required to do from a state level.
Well, that would just supersede whatever we agree to on this application.
Right.
That's fine.
My only suggestion maybe would an end period. If you do it for 3 years and there's nothing of concern, do you need to continue to do that for the next 25 years? Or
according to my preliminary Google research, it's the extended time where it gets worse. I think that would actually be counterintuitive. Like you're more concerned about the longer you are from the beginning of the installation.
So I would just say the commission would need to think about what specifically you want them testing for and what happens if the test finds whatever, negative, whatever it is you're looking for. I don't actually believe that a condition like that was imposed on the St. Luke's. I think there was a large debate about it, and I want to be careful what we say since it is still active litigation. But I don't believe that was a condition. It was definitely debated.
I thought we did, but I might be wrong.
My recollection is that there was no such condition placed on the St. Luke's approval of that nature.
I stand corrected then. It's fine.
I'll ask you a question then. For this type of rubber in the field, going back to my one class of material science, that over time things change. They can age and break down and change chemical composition. It's like metal rusting kind of thing. Is that the case here, or is it once it's created, it sort of stays that way forever? It may get smaller as you sort of step on it a lot, but beyond that, does it really change chemical composition?
Not being an expert on that, I would say the answer would be no, at least in this particular instance. If it was more tire rubber, I think you might have more of a concern on that, but being as how it's virgin rubber and just rubber material, I don't think it's going to change any composition from when it originally comes in.
When you use the term rubber, this is not natural rubber from the trees in the Pacific. This is synthetic rubber.
Still synthetic rubber, yes.
Okay, synthetic. It's not natural
doesn't
rubber.
have heavy metals from tires and truck tires and things like that.
No, we've been through all that, but I remember that very clearly. So thank you.
I think the other consideration, and I don't know because I wasn't involved, is whether you put this kind of condition on the fields that were the New Canaan baseball fields.
Park?
Perhaps
Capo.
There were no questions on the Capo field.
Yeah, but those fields don't slope down to a watershed area.
They do.
Do they?
They do. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're wetlands adjacent to those fields.
True.
There was
Good
an
point.
environmental intervener on the
That's
wetland
right.
case. It was
Water.
a lengthy process. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes downhill.
Well,
Water rolls
we
down.
can discuss the balance of the conditions on the 31st.
So it's continued to the 30th.
Continue to the 31st. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Don't pack up yet, commissioners. I have items I need to talk to you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I know.
That's not. That's in God's time. We're not in.
Wish it was 9:42.
Yeah, we're too. I gotta get up at 5:15. I gotta go to Manhattan tomorrow.
Oh, dude. Zero today.
I can try to be as quick as possible on the
It's gorgeous.
administrative items if we want to move to them. Okay, so amend the 2026 meeting schedule that was sent out to you all. It's posted on the website. We're looking to just change the June meeting date. It was supposed to be the 30th. We would like to move it to the 23rd to accommodate the zoning reg update. We have some mandates that need to be in effect July 1, and having the adoption meeting on June 30th is cutting it a bit too close. We'd already talked about that at the subcommittee level, and the subcommittee already
preferred.
3 in my.
Okay.
Okay.
So a motion and second, and then
I'll motion to adjust the meeting date to what you said.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Show of hands. Approved.
Okay. Next is Burtis Avenue. So twofold here. I will get it shared on my screen. So part of the special permit that the applicant got back in 2022 is right now in the business zone regulations, anytime a unit is over 1,500 square feet in size, you need a special permit for that in the business A zone. They received approval for 25 units. 15 of those units were to be over 1,500 square feet. They're not looking to change the footprints of any buildings, but they're looking to do some interior tweaking of things. They are seeking approval to lower the unit count from 25 to 22, or to 21, sorry, to 22 units. The number of affordable will stay the same. So it was approved at 3. It will still be 3. So they're losing 3 market rate units. They're not changing the number of units that are over 1,500 square feet, but I mean, they're jumping from being like 1,800 to there going to be some that are 3,300 and 3,200. And so, I mean, I wanted to talk to the commission about, the interpretation of this regulation. Are you comfortable with me signing off on this administratively? Do you want the applicant to come and present to you?
Are they changing the size of the affordable units?
Not to anything than what was discussed at the commission the last time they were here. They tweaked the size of the units the last time they were here when they were changing the footprints of the building. They're staying the same from that. They might be one may be getting bigger actually.
Bigger, just
okay.
I'm okay with that.
So long as the affordable stays the same or gets bigger. Yeah.
We've already given them approval for the proposed unit count of units over 1,500.
Yes.
And that's staying the same.
That's staying the same.
That's staying the same.
People interested in combining units.
So what's happening is demand for larger units seems to be happening.
I guess I think my issue with this is more of a policy issue, and maybe it's better discussed at the zoning review committee, but I think there was a good reason why we had an upper limit on the size of residential units in downtown. I think we let that slide a little bit on this project in exchange perhaps for some affordable units or to get a good project done. But how far it seems like a slippery slope. 1,500 and 3,300 are very different sized units, particularly in the location that we're talking about. And on one hand, less units overall, perhaps less residents, perhaps less traffic, like I can get behind that. But at the same time, I think it's a policy conversation about, do we want 3,000 square foot units in our downtown? Is that
so with the zoning reg update, we've talked about a lot, so you may not remember, but there is a plan, I think, to put a cap on the size of units.
Right.
So,
do you remember what it was? No.
We'll talk about it tomorrow night.
Approved, and then like 2 months later, the limit would be set.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So-
possible, but I also just think it's hard to hold someone else to a new limit when we've just
Right.
let this through. This will set a precedent potentially that people are going to come in and say, well, I want an exception because
If you bought 2 units adjacent, would we prevent them from buying them? Like,
Yes, technically, yes. That's, in theory, you would pull a building permit for that. And if we had a regulation that was, clear like it is here, I wouldn't oh, I wouldn't allow a sign off unless they came to you guys.
I think that whatever when they come to us with an application, it's not a soft number. It doesn't mean like, I don't want to set a precedent where they just come in and say, well, I'm going to build 25 units. Well, but I might change my mind later. I want to have a reputation here that they have to get it right and ask for what they're going to actually build. And so I'm not saying no, but no, I do want them to come and tell us what they want to do and why they want to do it.
Did we have the builder for the View, CARP, and the builder for the Forest Street development? Did they come back to get amended permits for their consolidated units?
So the View had a special zone written for them, no unit cap size, so totally different zone, totally different regulations. So no, they did not come back, and I would continue to do that because that's how the zone is written. Forest Street, they're in the same zone as Burtis, or they're not in the same zone, but they have the same regulations. So if someone asked me, I would tell them they would have to go back to the commission. I don't know when units were combined, if it was before I was
During
here.
construction.
So then I can't really speak to that. And if you disagree with that interpretation, let me know and I won't send people to you guys, but that's.
You mean the old Forest Street or the new Forest Street?
The new.
No,
townhouses.
No.
No, the
Pet
across the street from the
store.
gelato
It's not the
place.
pet store.
Yeah, okay, that's what you're thinking. I wasn't sure which one you meant.
That one.
Okay, so
The old pet store. Yeah.
So I'm hearing a mixed bag of yes or no. If
Like they should come back.
Should come back.
Okay.
I mean, yes, but if the answer from a policy perspective is that we don't have an interest in increasing units to that size, then making them come back is just making them spend time coming here for us to tell them no.
Unless they, pose some argument that we would consider including in our future zoning regulations. It's like such a good point.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't live in a vacuum. I will, they want to know how the meeting goes tonight, so I will tell them if there is, some skeptics about allowing more units that are over 1,500 square feet or that are not more, but they're significantly larger.
There is, but we were considering a cap, right? So if we're considering a cap, maybe that's your guidepost, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're going from 1,500 to 1,750. We're talking on 1,750. Then,
I mean, that was the attractiveness of the development when it was brought to us in 2022 was the number of units and the size of units that it would provide in the downtown area.
Yep.
Wasn't going to 4,000 square foot units.
Okay, so I mean, I'm happy to
For luxury,
tell them to come back.
supposed for luxury.
March 31st is filling up very quickly, so
Busy.
we'll have to deal with that.
I have to bring my caffeine.
I'll have to start at 6 o'clock. Okay, and then with that, I will note, since we will be bringing the applicant forward on the 31st, I just want you to be aware, there are some issues going on at the site. A neighbor has brought it to my attention recently.
At the Burtis Avenue site.
Yes, so there's and this is where I was getting at with the conditions. There is a condition in the Burtis Avenue approval that says that contractor will use his best faith efforts to ensure that utility work does not disrupt daily operation of adjacent properties. That is a very difficult condition. What does best faith effort mean? It's not very enforceable, to be honest with you. So we have
best
this
faith or good faith?
good faith. Sorry, good
Okay.
faith. Probably good faith. I don't know.
Or because there's also then best efforts, commercially reasonable efforts,
I
and
believe
good
it's the
faith are all
same
three different standards.
I can have the language handy, when they come on the 31st, but
What's that problem?
that, I mean, a few weeks or maybe a week and a half ago, there were, I think, 5 days in a row where the road was closed to traffic or one way only. And I mean, that disrupts business. And so, I mean, there's the question of how do we go about enforcing good faith efforts?
But what's reasonable? I mean, if they're rebuilding the sidewalk and all the infrastructure along that road, you can't expect them to have it closed for a day. So Then we get into what's best effort or good faith or determine that.
Are they running the power underground on Burgess now? Like those-
I don't believe they've gotten approval from Eversource yet.
There's
So I
some-
mean, it's just, I think it's something to, neighbors brought to my attention. I have emailed the applicant. They said that last week was an anomaly, whether that's true or not.
Did they close Burtis Avenue completely or just made it?
One way.
It was one way.
Well, it's always
a
one
few
way.
days.
One way.
No, Cherry
Cherry,
Street. It was
that was
Cherry
blocked.
Street.
Cherry
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
one way.
with the police escorts
Yeah.
out there blocking traffic.
Yeah, they were hooking up to the sewer.
Yeah.
I have to, there's certain types of utility structural changes that you simply have to close everybody off for safety reasons or just logistical
Yeah.
reasons. And you try to do it as quickly as possible, but if you're ripping up the street because you're putting a sewer line in, you're ripping up the street and there's just no two ways about it. Yeah, exactly. What else can you do? If you do it, if you could do it in 2 days and you took 5, that's a different conversation, but.
And I hear you. I think it's just conditions like that they're kind of a slippery slope.
That's a fair point.
We're putting it in because we do care about how the neighbors feel and how they operate, but are we setting an unrealistic expectation of what that condition actually?
So do we,
Just remind.
looking to council input here? Do we?
Not a Connecticut attorney, but continue.
That's
yeah.
okay. But you
He's
you stated
legally
a Holiday
required to
Inn
say
last night,
that.
So you're good. But do we elaborate on the condition and make it much more specific, or do we eliminate it completely?
For this application or for
I'm
applications
just
generally?
using Burtis, for example, this whole street closure thing.
No, I think you make conditions as specific as possible.
Specific.
Because look, right? Because you, me, we know what it's like to be on the other side. We know what it's like to come and when a developer comes to us, they want the first question I get asked every time is, what's my certainty? What's my risk? What's my chances of, violating this, right? And the clearer we can provide a condition, the more they can live up to it. The more uncertainty and fungible it is, the harder they keep coming here and we're talking and it's 11 o'clock and everybody's going to bed.
Just knowing the logistics and complexity of building a site like Burtis, between sewer hookup, telco hookup, power shutdown to connect at the power at the street, there are so many different aspects that could affect the peaceful enjoyment of the neighbors. It's almost impossible to document every one of those.
And up to Sarah to enforce it if she has and it's in her discretion to issue the violation.
Remind them, we understand you have.
Hey, you're getting a complaint.
Yeah.
So clean it up.
Yeah, tried to do your best.
But I think as a word to the wise in doing conditions, the more fine point you put on them, then everybody has a better chance of living up to it.
Rules of engagement.
Fair enough.
Okay. Moving on, hopefully to just plow through this one as well. So another special condition. So this was posted on the website for you all to review. I received a complaint back in November about Soundview Lane, which backs up to St. Luke's. And it was asked that I bring this to the commission's attention. In November, I reached out directly to St. Luke's.
This is the cul-de-sac that butts up
So-
to the back of the field.
There is a finding in the 2013 special permit that was issued when the school expanded that says the commission views Soundview Lane as a cul-de-sac. Therefore, to maintain the integrity of the street and surrounding areas, St. Luke's should not consider Soundview Lane for through access to St. Luke's unless warranted in an emergency situation. So I'm bringing this up, partially just because, as we said, we're sensitive to institutional uses and, the special permit is 13 years old. Most of you weren't on the commission, so I think it's just important that, everyone is aware of what I'm still enforcing 13 years later. So seems like students, staff have found a loophole. Some people are parking on Soundview Lane. I've reached out to St. Luke's back in November. They assured me that, it's not allowed. If it's happening, it's not sanctioned by the school. They said that they would, send out a reminder. February rolls around, I get another complaint about this happening.
But they also own that property.
They own one of these houses,
The
yes.
only one on the left,
Yeah.
because the one on the right has the cell tower.
Yep.
Yeah, so they own the one on the left. So I mean, I'm really bringing this up, one, because, you know, I was asked to bring it to the commission's attention, and two, just to kind of talk through, I mean, my interpretation is there is really no enforcement mechanism because it's a finding. It's not a special condition. It's just a finding.
Not a police. You know,
Yeah.
it's say you're parking on a street.
Parking, no parking,
You ticket them.
police.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I just wanted to, you know, talk through with you all. I'm happy to refer it to the police department. I just wanted to make
It's-
sure you don't think there's any other.
When you say it's a finding, did they make up their own special permit and then make that finding? Is that,
So the commission, there was a full resolution, in the resolution, there are 7 findings. And then we switch over to special conditions.
so what was the, I'm just confused as to how they're violating a finding.
It was
Well,
like
that's my
agreed
point.
upon.
You can't violate a finding, I guess is what I'm ensuring the commission concurs with.
I don't think this is a zoning issue. I think this is a parking issue with the police department, if there is a parking
If there
issue with
is,
the
yep.
police department. The street parking is allowed on residential streets like this.
Yep.
Especially since they own a house on the street.
Yeah.
Agreed,
Right to
just,
be on the street.
But so like, if that becomes like an egress method, does that like disagree
There's-
with the finding then?
so I mean, I would say that,
The
you know,
egret-
let's say there,
just to be clear, the egress was at the end of the cul-de-sac. There's a fence that separates their property, and there's basically a gate to the fence.
Yeah.
And just in case they needed to roll, because I was around during that application, in case they needed to get an ambulance in there or a fire truck, they could blow through that gate and get to the back of the field and then get out.
I've walked that loop.
Yeah, okay.
so I mean, I would say, you know, if St. Luke's were to come back for a special permit or something in the future, and, you know, it was found that a finding were not, you know, being followed, I think it could be grounds to needing a condition in a new special permit.
Sure.
Or something like that, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then finally, charter revision.
Charter
Very
Review Commission.
quickly.
Have
So.
you guys been following all the great news from the Charter Review Commission?
The great news?
No. Okay, so just to
I went to
briefly,
the coffee talk. I tried to talk to everyone.
so just very briefly, you know, there's, you know, we submitted that letter, every single commissioner put their name on it. We are, meaning, you know, Dan has asked me to draft another letter to submit, because there's been some more information, by a commissioner on the Charter Revision Commission that I'll say is misleading to what planning and zoning does. So, I will be circulating another letter to the full commission. If you want your name on it, just respond to me. Don't respond to the whole group, just respond to me. And, you know, we're keeping an eye on the charter. Dan, I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to the argument I made to the CRC, which is the danger in going to a elected P and Z as opposed to appointed, is that you end up with the minority voices being the loudest ones in the room and the ones that get the most attention, even though they might be wrong. And that's what's exactly happening on the appointed Charter Review Committee, is you have, and some of you may have been around during the cell tower discussions at West School.
Yeah.
At the Ritchie property, a gentleman by the name of Joe Paulo. Remember him?
Yeah.
Came in with textbooks filled with, you know, reports on the volatility of cell towers and proximity to them, and the EMF say, you know, he had valid information, valid reports, but there was a lot of grandstanding. Huh?
There was an agenda.
That was an agenda. He has a similar agenda, and I would encourage you to go to the meeting for the CRC. It's on YouTube. You can watch it from, it was last week's meeting, right? I think.
I believe so.
Yeah, last week's meeting. And the CRC, did they post that PowerPoint?
Oh, yes. It's
Yeah.
posted,
So you can go to the Charter Review Committee's link on the town webpage. there's like a 30-page PowerPoint he put together about all of the evil things that we do as a P and Z because we're appointed. And I'm exaggerating a little, but that's kind of the gist of his PowerPoint. And a lot of it's misleading. There's a lot that's incorrect, and we're going to try and set the record straight. The next meeting is on the 17th of this month because you all want to go to another meeting like I do. We are going to issue a rebuttal letter to that PowerPoint and try and set the records. Do I? No.
We're submitting a letter.
Submitting a letter.
How about a letter?
Sarah's
You
our
get a
PowerPoint.
letter.
We'll mark it up.
Um,
If anyone wants to join me this
Yeah.
Thursday, there's another coffee talk. I spoke up at the last month's about being elected versus appointed, and everyone was really really cordial about it and was really happy to have the perspective that we were talking about. So if anyone wants to come this Thursday, I know most people have full-time jobs right now, but
It's
I'm not-
common talk at the Sentinel Coffees.
It's common talk again because of the minority
right, and that was brought up.
voices, loud voices. Is there actual traction to it? I'm hearing from other people in town and other leaders in town that probably not, but you never know. It all depends on how much exposure it gets. For example, one of the slides, this is a prime example of how he kind of twists the truth for the agenda, is they sent out a survey, online survey, right?
Yeah.
You saw that. Sent out an online survey. They got 69 responses total for a town of 20,000 people.
We did better at,
Well, so they got
It's not a
60,
competition.
so they got 69 responses. 38% of the responses were for an elected commission rather than appointed. So a minority. But he interpolates that across the population of the town, that 38% of the town would vote for the elected position, meaning 6,800 people, which is a greater demographic than the entire registered Republicans, registered Democrats, and even independents in town.
All the 4-year-olds would come.
And all the
vote.
4-year-olds,
Yeah.
and they're all gonna vote for elected positions. So it's that type of manipulation of information that is catching the ears of the people on the CRC, some of whom are listening, some of whom are critical of it. But our role is to show up and
When's that meeting?
try and correct it, the 17th, between,
So again, we'll
between
be-
5 and 7.
I will be
I know.
circulating a response letter. If commissioners want their name on it, you will let me know, and then we will submit it to the CRC ahead of St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
5
it's
o'clock on
nuts.
St. Patrick's Day. I am going
No,
green and
Irish
drunk.
Yeah.
All right, is the meeting?
Wear that
adjourned?
sweater,
Oh, wait,
John.
we still have to approve minutes really quick, and then minutes, January 27th, 2026.
By the way, I also want to thank John Engel, as well as John Goodwin, our former chairman. They both showed up for it was the first CRC meeting, and made excellent points at that meeting to support the P and Z. We followed up at the next meeting with a larger contingent, and we're now doing it again. And I don't know how much longer we're gonna have to keep fighting them on this, but hopefully not much longer. Anyway,
So the next one is 5 p.m. next week.
5 p.m. on the 17th. Anyone have any changes, comments, or questions on the minutes from the last meeting on January 27th?
No.
Do a show of hands for approval? Approved, unanimous. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.